Ex so entitled she thinks I should be paying bills for her and the guy she cheated with. Found out my girlfriend of 11 years was cheating me with an unemployed dude, of all people. I'm not rich but I provided her a good lifestyle, paid most of her bills. Provided a nice place. Nails and hair done regularly. Dates every weekend. Couple vacations a year. She got used to that lifestyle and wanted to keep living it despite cheating with a broke dude. She didn't admit to the cheating. I caught on to it. Once it was clear I was done with her, the entitlement really started to show. She said because I had family in the area and she didn't, I should move out but continue paying the bills to give her and the new guy a chance to get on their feet. She also insisted on keeping my dogs, told me I could only see my own dogs if I asked the new guy. But since they didn't have any money, I needed to continue paying for food and vet bills. Instead, I kicked her out and kept my dogs. At that point she was angry. And still felt entitled to my income. After I kicked her out of my place she claimed she was forced to quit her job because I forced her to relocate. And then she tried to sue me for lost wages, which didn't work out in her favor. You'd think she'd stop at this point but she didn't. She contacted my work and threatened to sue them, stating, "Your employees' actions cost me everything," and tried to insist they settle outside of court with her. For $100,000, she didn't make that much money. Instead my work filed harassment charges against her. You'd think she'd stop at that point. But she didn't. She started messaging every family member of mine that she could find, told them I cost her everything out of spite just because she moved on with someone else, and that the least they could do is send her money to help her get a place and pay rent. When that didn't work, she went online and begged for people to send money to her Cash App to help her with a place to live, and claimed it was a domestic violence situation. I don't understand how she doesn't understand that any financial support I gave her would end if she cheated on me. We weren't married. We don't have kids. I've supported her for years. I owe her nothing. I really don't owe it to her to help her and her new relationship get on their feet and establish themselves. Which seems to come as a shock to her. Stories number 2. Am I the asshole? For saying I guess I have to choose my brother. Update. First, I want to thank everyone for being so thoughtful and kind. The advice and perspectives were really good for me. I don't think I've mentioned this but Kayla and I had been together almost 2 years by this point. I hadn't seen anything weird or out of line but some of the comments about how she would treat Sam when I wasn't around really fucked with me. So last night I took Sam out for some guy fun and dinner. At dinner, I told him we needed to have a serious talk and he looked super worried, asking if our dad was okay. I said yes, and it wasn't that conversation. He knows parts of what will happen if dad gets worse, and I will always have a space for him. But I asked him what he thought about Kayla. He immediately looked disinterested, picking at his food and mumbled that she was okay. Before, I would have thought he was upset I was being taken away by some woman. Now though, I nudged a little, asking if she had ever been mean or rude or just made him feel uncomfortable. He was immediately in tears and saying he was sorry. He told me how she would talk about how he was a burden to me, how I couldn't have my own family yet because of him since he would come into my home when dad would get worse, when, not if, and we always talk about if to keep him from stressing too much, and how he was selfish for asking to go to Comic-Con every year, how he was selfish for taking up so much time already and might take up more in the future. I was really seeing red. It took too long for me to calm down enough to comfort him and soothe the worries. I told him in no uncertain terms he was not a burden, he was my little brother, and I don't have a family because I haven't found a good person to have one with yet. I told him no one gets to make him this upset, especially someone I bring into his world. After cheering him up with a secret snack and new game, gotta keep treats hidden from dad to make it extra special, you know, I took him home. I immediately went over to Kayla's. It was probably like 10 at night but I still just honked the horn until she came out when she told me to just come inside. I have dash cams and left them running. I ripped into her immediately about everything she told Sam. She looked stunned as I tore into her about it. I wasn't loud but it was very clear I was furious. Sometime through my ranting, she started crying. When I ended with "We're fucking done," she slapped me hard and began wailing. She told me how she knew this would happen, how that demon had turned me against her, how I promised we could work out things, and that she was doing what was best for us. He should just go into a home. I was so angry I yelled that she was fucking pathetic to think I would send Sam to a home. I got into the car as neighbors started being nosy. She threw herself onto the hood of my car, grabbed the windshield wipers and shrieked that I couldn't just leave. I revved the car but she didn't budge. I had to put the car back into the park. Someone had enough of the theatrics and had called the cops. It wasn't long before they arrived. They removed her from my car, she cried to them, I showed them the video footage. They offered to arrest her for assault and I told them to just make her go back inside, and asked them to grab the leather jacket on the hook in the hall. They did and I left. It was quiet for less than an hour. Her friends, her parents, and others who I don't even really know, began blowing up my phone along with her. She would go from wailing to raging, crying to screaming. My voicemail box is full. My DMs are constantly filling. I'm blocking people and numbers like crazy. She hasn't stopped spam messaging me. She threatened to hurt herself if I didn't answer this morning and my buddy called the cops to go over and check on her. He said that's how you deal with that, you do not engage. Any advice going forward? I'm thinking about floating the idea of just moving back in with Dad and Sam so if Dad does get worse, Sam would still be near him even if I'm in charge. Or would that be bad because the condition can be pretty severe looking? Stories number 3. As soon as our child was in the ground, my husband started cheating on me. It's been a long night. It's cold outside tonight and my clothes are soaked. There are so many beautiful homes in this neighborhood. Looks like my husband has found himself a wealthy whore. I turn to my right and walk towards her house. After this, I can finally move on. Her porch light is on. I go to a door around back. I'm thankful she doesn't have a dog. I don't want to hurt any animals. I pull out the small pieces of metal. My first purchase after getting out of the hospital. I never would have been in the hospital if it hadn't been for him and his cheating. I'm broken. He broke me. He left me there. Never visited once. He was all too happy to let the crazy wife rot while he was starting something new with his little homewrecker. He blamed me for our son's death. It wasn't my fault. I picked the door lock. So many things you can learn on the internet. Easy things. So many expensive things in here. Things we could never afford. My shoes squeak on the hardwood floor, so I walk on my tiptoes. I make my way up the stairs. 3 bedrooms. She has kids. A boy and a girl. What kind of woman lets a married man sleep over with her kids in the house? A terrible mother. I stare at her son. Sleeping so peacefully. He's about the same age as Devon was. She doesn't deserve kids. I close their doors and move to her bedroom. They're both sound asleep. My husband and the bitch. I think about our life before Devon died. I think about all the things that were done to me at that hospital, a place that was supposed to help me. I think about all those nights I was scared and alone and he was right here with her. Sound asleep. I've acted this out so many times. My body knows the motions. The different steps. How long it will take. I have 5 seconds. I wait until she begins to turn from one side to the other. I slice her throat from ear to ear, and I walk around the bed. 5. She gurgles. 4. My husband wakes up. 3. I'm on his side of the bed. 2. He turns to see what's the matter. 1. He turns on the light and sees me. I stick the knife into his throat. With her children asleep in the other rooms, I feel dress them like animals. So many things you can learn on the internet. Easy things. I pray I forget all this, have a new beginning. I leave quietly out the front door. It's been a long night. It's cold outside tonight and my clothes are soaked. There are so many big houses in this neighborhood. Looks like my husband has found himself a wealthy whore. I turn to my right and walk towards her house. After this, I can finally move on. Stories number 4. Am I the asshole? For switching out my daughter's school lunches behind my wife's back. My wife Sarah, 36F, and I, 35M, have an 11-year-old daughter named Lily. Lily had begun attending 6th grade in September, but this problem only recently became a major issue. Sarah is Indian and makes great dishes that the whole family enjoys, and tends to pack these lunches for Lily as well. She typically packs Lily a rice with dal in a container or something similar, which she had no issues with in elementary school. However, recently Lily came sobbing to her mom and I about the lunches she took. The kids at school had been making fun of her food, which absolutely made my heart break. I had struggled with the same thing at her age. I come from a Chinese family and would always take homemade food to school too, and when I asked her if she wanted us to report the problem, she begged us not to so she wouldn't be called a snitch or worse. When Sarah heard this, she simply contacted the principal, which I didn't want to resort to at first, and left the issue, telling Lily she wouldn't be buying school lunch and to just ignore the other kids. The same problem occurred every day. Lily would be coming home feeling extremely upset and there were even times Sarah would yell at Lily for not even touching her school lunch. We both had talks with Lily about her culture and how she should be proud, have contacted the schools, but the school is ignorant of the issue. They simply had a talk with the parents, and ended it there, and Lily isn't budging. I don't want her to starve, because so many days she doesn't even eat her lunch. I know how brutal middle schoolers can be, and I didn't want Lily to feel insecure or upset even if it meant making her take other lunches. But Sarah refuses to make other lunches. I began to make other lunches for Lily, like sandwiches, or sometimes mac and cheese, so she'd feel more comfortable eating it in school in front of her classmates as a final resort when nothing else worked. I would take Lily's lunch for myself at work and pack her own lunch early in the morning, which she finished and seemed happier when coming home daily after. However, this only worked for about 2 weeks until Sarah found out and was infuriated. She said I was denying Lily her culture and she needed to learn to stop being insulted by other kids, telling me I'm raising Lily to get whatever she wants. Is Sarah right? Am I the asshole? Update post. Okay, so I'll start by saying thank you for all the comments. A lot of people agreed with me, some told me I should let Lily pick her lunch. I showed the post to Sarah and it took about an hour or so, but we both sat down and talked Lily on where she wants to go from here and she said she liked the lunches I packed her etc. However, we also figured out this bullying had been going on for longer than just 2 to 3 weeks. So Sarah agreed to let Lily take whatever lunch she wanted on the condition that she'd eat homemade food, Chinese or Indian, for dinner/breakfast still, and we all agreed, so Sarah got her part in it. As for the school, since the principal hardly did anything, we reached out to the school board superintendent and are still waiting for a response. I think this solved the issue better too, and when we get a response I'll post a second update. Final update post. So, I'm sorry for taking so long to update. But we managed to resolve everything. The superintendent and school board were actually incredibly helpful and got back to us within 2 days to schedule a meeting about this. I don't want to go too much into detail, but there were 2 specific girls who played a big role in the bullying. I believe one of them got detention for some time, and another got suspended because she'd done this before. Their parents were also super apologetic and supportive of Lily, and didn't try to get in the way of the consequences, which really was nice. As for Lily, she is doing much better and is definitely more content and happier when she comes home from school. Thank you. Stories number 5. Am I the asshole? For asking my pregnant colleague if she is having a boy or a girl. Today at our weekly team meeting one of my colleagues announced that she is pregnant and will be going on maternity leave in April. Everyone reacted with congratulations and excitement for her, and I did too. We all told her we're very happy for her and her family and wish her all the best. A few minutes later, I was in the elevator with her and 3 of our other team members, so 5 of us out of a total team of 11 people, on our way back to our desks. Just for the sake of conversation, I asked her if she is having a boy or a girl. Her face kind of fell and she grimly and shortly said boy. I thought it was strange that she reacted like this, but let it go. Then after I was back at my desk, she came up to me and said that my question was inappropriate, that she was planning on announcing the gender herself, but I forced her to say it like that in an elevator, so now half of our team knows and it killed the magic. I was honestly really confused and apologized profusely. She lectured me on how I shouldn't be asking personal questions and walked away. I honestly couldn't have thought this was in any way a personal question. Is it too personal? I'm a 24-year-old dude and I don't know anything about pregnant women or babies or social customs, I guess. I was just trying to be friendly. Am I the asshole? Stories number 6. Dad purchased a snowmobile using my name, without my knowledge, and it got repossessed. There's now a repo on my credit and my score dropped almost 200 points. My dad and I have the same name, I'm a junior in 20 years you get than him. Last year, he got a snowmobile but never told me. I heard about it from my sister. When I brought it up, he acknowledged he bought one, which I thought was odd because he has never been good with finances, but didn't think a lot of it. In July, he told my sister he sold it because he didn't think he would use it enough to justify keeping it. I decided to start looking at buying a house and found one I liked. When I went to get pre-approved yesterday, I was denied and the loan officer said it was because of a recent repo. I genuinely had no idea what they were talking about, so she showed me a copy of my credit report. Sure enough, a repo was on there and through some digging, I found it was the finance company used where my dad got the snowmobile. I called him up livid. He admitted he used my info to get the snowmobile but couldn't make the payments anymore. He actually said not to worry because it will clear from my credit in 7 years, then I could buy a house. Obviously I hung up on him. I'm not telling him, but I think I'm going to call the cops. This is straight up identity fraud. What else should I be doing? It would have been nice to catch this sooner, but here we are. Stories number 7. Mom has blown up our family and blamed us kids. Boomer mom has long been conservative, and became MAGA somewhere along the line. My sibling, early 40s NB, kids, tween daughter and teen trans son, and I, mid-40s F, are all liberal-leaning. We've all been hurt by the outcome of the election, particularly by my mom's justification of why she voted red. I voted for the economy and my bank account and your future. Your hormones and care were at the very bottom of my list of priorities. But you'll be fine. He's not really going to take away anything that harms you. We all will be medically impacted if any of his promises come through. Some of us need SSDI. Some of us have experienced sexual assault. Some of us need housing assistance. Mom doesn't care how we will be affected. At all. I decided to not host her for Thanksgiving. She's hurt and wants us to suck up our egos for the sake of family. I'm hosting sibling and my kids and that's it. If my kid said, "Mom, your actions hurt me," you best believe I'm asking questions and working to change my behaviors. Is this a generational difference? Or just different parenting belief? Anyways, our mother is upset that we won't subject ourselves to people who openly don't care about us or our well-being, and thinks we're the ones out of line for not swallowing or pride. It's just one more example of insane boomer behaviors I've seen on here in recent months. Stories number 8. Am I the asshole? For telling my mom I don't care if my kids never know my sister's kids and I'm not going to take responsibility to teach my sister's kids better. I, 31M, was never very close to my sister, 33F. We got along okay as kids, but the older we got the more different we became and the more strain there was in our relationship. She married young, 18, and has many kids now. I got married 5 years ago and my wife and I have 2 children together. My sister is a Som and a trad wife and submissive wife to her husband. She believes men need to be the providers and women should stay at home without exception, and she looks down on me for being a SAHD. She actually started mocking me when I married my wife. My wife makes more money than I did when I was working. She was always the breadwinner. I still worked hard and brought money in, but she was a higher earner, and my sister told me I wanted a husband and not a wife with the way I was acting. When she heard I was going to be the SAHP, she expressed that she felt it was wrong. I ignored her and ceased our contact significantly. Now, however, my sister is looking to take advantage of me being at home with my kids and she wants me to take her kids sometimes. I said no, and I told her she doesn't get to treat me like shit and then expect favors. She tried to dangle a relationship with her kids, something I never really had, over my head. She told our mom and now mom's involved. She asked me why I wouldn't want to spend time with my sister's kids, and when she realized I knew that was what I was passing up, she mentioned my kids knowing they're only cousins and then suggested that I could be a positive influence on my sister's kids so they'd grow up being less judgmental, and she said it would be better for all the kids, hers and mine. I told my mom I do not care if my kids never know my sister's kids. I said actually, it would be for the best with how my sister and her husband think and act. I said their kids could be talking like their parents around my kids, and unless I'm with them all 24/7 I wouldn't know or be able to correct it. And I also said I am not taking on the responsibility of teaching them better than their parents are. I said if anything, that could end with more insults aimed at my wife and me. I said my sister would lose her mind about boys playing with dolls or playing house or dress up, and we have all that here. And I am not exposing my family to that negativity. My mom told me it's very disappointing that I don't care about my own nieces and nephews. Stories number 9. Neighbor called cops because I was walking. My neighbors generally suck, they're all loud, they have no regard for neighbors. But this one. What? I've been trying to lose weight so I don't have any junk food in the house. If I want a junk food I have to walk to go get it. It's been working. But around 9 p.m. last night I had a craving for nachos, so I started walking. On the walk back, warm nachos in hand, I had a police officer pull up next to me. One of my neighbors had called in a suspicious person. They'd called in a few other times with the same description of the person, including security video of me that shows my tattoos. I was deemed suspicious by the neighbor because I wasn't looking at my phone, walking a dog, or walking with other people. I've lived in the neighborhood for 6 years. I stick to the sidewalk. I'm literally just walking off my outer fat person to feed my inner fat person, but apparently I can't do that without being suspicious. Am I supposed to stare at my phone, bring my reactive dog, and sing show tunes while I walk? Do I need my address printed on a shirt saying, "I fucking live here"? Stories number 10. Am I the asshole? For publicly humiliating my wife at her workplace after discovering her affair. I don't even know where to begin. My wife, Leah, 43F, and I have been married for 10 years. We have 2 beautiful children, our 5-year-old son and our 2-year-old daughter. I thought we were happy, or at least, I thought we were trying. But 4 weeks ago, my entire life came crash down. I, 46M, started to notice when she was glued to her phone more than usual. Leah has always been private, but this was different. She'd smile at her screen, then immediately lock it when I walked into the room. One night, after she fell asleep, I couldn't resist. I checked her phone. What I found still makes me sick to my stomach. There were messages with a coworker, Eric, 48M, going back years. Explicit texts. Photos. Promises of love. Even references to secret trips they'd taken while I was at home with the kids, believing she was working late. My heart was racing, my hands trembling. I confronted her the next morning. At first, she denied it, said I was misunderstanding. But when I read her the messages out loud, her face crumbled. She admitted it. She said it started 4 years ago, long before our youngest was born. She tried to justify it, you were distant, we were struggling. But nothing could excuse this. I started digging deeper. I followed her to work one day, needing to see it for myself. Sure enough, after her shift, she walked out arm in arm with Eric. They didn't even try to hide it. They got into his car and drove off. I followed them to a restaurant where they sat like a happy couple, laughing, holding hands. It broke me. But what shattered me completely was when I learned they'd built their own life together. They'd been renting an apartment near work, a place where she'd go when she was working overtime. I saw them go inside, watching them from my car parking on the streets, a few blocks away. I checked on them for about 4 nights, and they had the same routine. That's when I snapped. I packed all of her belongings, everything she owned, into the back of my car and drove to her workplace the next morning after spying on them. I know I did wrong. When she walked out, I dumped everything right there on the sidewalk in front of her and her coworkers. I told her she wasn't coming home. Since then, LV filed for divorce and am fighting for the full custody of the kids. She's begging me to forgive her, saying she doesn't want to lose the family we built. But how can I? Friends and family keep asking me if I regret how I handled it, publicly humiliating her, kicking her out without notice. I do. She tore our family apart, and the least she could do is face some accountability, but I can't help but feel like the bad guy for how I acted. I had nights where LV felt very lonely, and I miss her. Of course, I am also attending to therapy sessions to be better for the kids and for myself. All I care about are them, they don't deserve this chaos. And as much as it hurts, I know they are better off with me than someone who could live a lie for so long. Am I the asshole? Update, 8 days later. Thanks to everyone who commented on my original post. I wanted to share an update about where things stand now. For those asking how I didn't notice her affair for 4 years, it's because Leah was always incredibly private. She was adamant about boundaries and would shut me down if I asked too many questions. She handled the rent, utilities, and her own expenses, while I covered groceries, the kids' school costs, internet, water, and anything extra. She claimed it was fair since we both worked, and I didn't push because I trusted her and didn't want to create unnecessary conflict. Looking back, I can see how I missed the signs, but at the time, I didn't think questioning her was necessary. After finding out about her affair, I had DNA tests done for both kids. My son is biologically mine, but my daughter isn't. That was a tough pill to swallow, but it doesn't change anything for me. I've been her father in every way that matters, and I love her like my own. I believe the person who raises a child is their real parent, and no court is going to convince me otherwise. Right now, I'm in the middle of the legal process. The divorce itself hasn't been finalized yet, but I've made it clear that I'm fighting for full custody of both kids. I've explained to the court why I believe Leah isn't fit to have primary custody. Her betrayal wasn't just a personal one, it shows a complete disregard for the stability and well-being of our family. The court process is slow, and so far, we've only had preliminary hearings. I've provided evidence of her infidelity and the double life she led, and I've asked for a full psychological evaluation for both of us to ensure the best decision is made for the kids. I'm also working on showing the court that I've been the primary caregiver emotionally and financially. My lawyer has told me it's a tough battle, especially since courts often lean toward joint custody, but I'm not backing down. To those who said my story sounded fake, I get it. This is the kind of nightmare you think only happens in movies or to someone else. I wouldn't believe it either if I wasn't living it. All I can say is, I hope you never go through something like this. It destroys everything you thought you knew about your life. For now, I'm staying focused on my kids and doing everything I can to give them a stable and loving home. They're the only good thing to come out of all this, and I won't let them down. Thank you for your support. It means more than you know. Stories number 11. My dad has been sued, his bank accounts garnished for over $200,000. I'm joint on one of those accounts. How do I unfuck myself? Located in Texas. Using throwaway because these details could identify me. My dad is 65 and has a track record of poor financial decisions and civil suits from debt collectors. I got a notification today from PNC Bank, with which I have a stagnant account, that I am minus $213,685. I immediately called the bank thinking this was fraud, and was told it was due to a legal hold. I have been aware that my dad is being sued civilly, that he didn't show up for his court date, that a default judgment was ruled against him, and that garnishment was in process. Unfortunately, I have a joint bank account with him. We opened it when I was a minor, and I just never bothered to close it. I am now in my 30s and married. This was my mistake, I should have closed this account. I immediately made my father meet me at the bank to remove me, but the bank would not do that while it was in a negative state, of course. They did, however, provide my father with the contact information of the plaintiff's lawyer, Mike, who put the garnishments in place. I should also add that my brother also has a joint account with my father because they shared a business together. In all, 4 of my dad's bank accounts were garnished at the same amount. While I was having a bit of a meltdown feeling like my entire life is ruined, my father called this attorney as well as his own. Now keep in mind, my father lied to me repeatedly today about the details of this. I know that he knows he was being sued because court records show he was served and he has an attorney. I know that he knows the garnishment was coming, but he claimed today that he had no idea about any of this. It was a total shock to him. He told me that this Mike attorney told him that he would reverse the garnishments for the 2 joint accounts. My father also claimed that he filled Mike in on information he didn't have, like the contact information of the other defendant, his former business partner, and some other details about another person taking money from the company. It all smells like bullshit to me and I don't feel secure at all that this attorney will reverse any of the garnishments. Between feeling angry, terrified, helpless, and every other emotion one human can feel in a single day, I'm trying to determine what my brother and I can do here. If these garnishments are not reversed, what do I even do? If by some miracle they are, will this destroy my credit? Will I forever have a garnishment on my record? Do I need to seek an attorney for myself? I can't really afford one right now, but I certainly can't afford the fees that will stack up from being in the negative 6 figures. I can't let my father ruin my life. Please let me know what my brother and I can do to save ourselves. Edit. Additional information: only $50 was in the account. I don't use the account for anything. I don't care to get this money back. Additional question: do I owe the bank $212,000? They will start adding fees soon. I assume I'm liable for these fees. Some are saying it's not my debt and not my problem. But I can't ignore a negative bank account like this, right? Stories number 12. Invited to shower but not the wedding, just venting. I have a friend who invited me to her wedding shower. I was excited for her. I asked my friend's mom what day the wedding is. She tells me the date but tells me that the wedding is just for immediate family. To celebrate with everyone there will be a shower, and she requested that everyone bring non-perishable foods to stock their pantry and other things for the house. I really did respect that it was immediate family at the wedding. The shower was nice. Then I start getting questions from mutual friends who had attended the shower asking if I would be at the wedding as well on the day of the wedding. No. I hadn't been invited and was told it was for immediate family. Am I being too sensitive for taking it personal? I feel so used. I wish her well, but I feel like since the wedding shower had such a small attendance, why not invite everyone there? Am I good enough to give gifts but not be a part of this important day? The shower was a while back and I did go. The wedding was yesterday and that's when I found out. I can't help but feel a twinge of feeling left out and hurt. Edit. There was a wedding registry as well. Stories number 13. I demanded a man help his wife. Today in the mall, an elderly lady called out in the public bathroom that she could not stand herself up. The poor lady was stuck on the toilet. After several women talked to her and managed to lift the stall door off its hinges, we still couldn't lift her. She had zero strength in her legs. She said her husband was waiting outside with her wheelchair, so I went to get him to help her. I told him what was happening. She was sitting on the toilet, with the stall door removed fully in view in a public restroom, the poor lady, and he just balked and said, "I can't go in there." I replied, "Is she your wife?" He said, "Yes," to which I said, "She needs your help, now." He relented and went in and got her up and onto her wheelchair. I understand he was older and didn't like the idea of going into a women's washroom, but seriously, he had to be pushed to help his elderly partner. It was so bizarre and sad to me. Stories number 14. We listen and we don't judge trend prompted my 24F husband, 38M, to reveal a cruel 2-year-long prank. How can I learn to start trusting him again? My husband saw TikTok videos this week about couples saying we listen and we don't judge, then revealing something bad or funny they do behind their partner's back. He pressured me to participate because he said he had something very funny to admit, but I had to go first to justify his. When it was his turn, he told me he removed things from my computer to make it very slow and almost unusable. 2 years ago, in 2022, my computer suddenly started running like garbage and I could never figure out what was wrong. I primarily used it for school and playing online games with my siblings because I don't live close to them anymore. Now I can hardly browse the internet, let alone play games on it. I couldn't afford a new computer because only I am working right now. He told me it would take him only a minute or two to fix whatever it is he did, but he just never wanted to. When I asked him why he would do that, he said it's because I should spend all my time with him and he didn't like that I would play games a few times a week. My feelings are very hurt right now, and I'm having a hard time believing anything he says now. How can I get my mind off this and stop distrusting him? We have been married for 6 years and I'm so stressed about what other things he might have done to manipulate me. How do people generally get over betrayals of trust like this? Stories number 15. Clock out exactly at the end of my shift. Okay. Some context. I work overnights at a well-known gym franchise that I will not name. My typical shift is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Usually there is always supposed to be 2 people on night shift together, but lately my coworkers have been calling off a lot, causing me to be in the gym alone all night. My coworker, let's call her Sam, comes in at 6 a.m. when I get off. Here's the problem, Sam doesn't usually come in on time, she is usually always 10 to 15 minutes late. So on to the problem. Since Sam comes in late, I tend to have to stay clocked in past 6 a.m. Additionally, since I'm usually alone at night, I can't get any important tasks done until Sam comes in. My boss noticed my time cards, and got very upset that I haven't been clocking out right at 6 a.m. He made me feel really crappy despite constantly being on the blunt end of all his scheduling messes. So I told him okay. I will leave exactly at 6 a.m. So that's what I've been doing. I've been leaving the gym entirely unattended until someone gets there, and most of the time, no one does for a while. So now members are confused, my manager doesn't know what to do considering he is the one who scolded me for staying past 6 a.m. He thought that I would just clock out and stay off the clock, but why would I do that? I was not going to take the fall for someone else consistently being late. He won't fire me or write me up because this is technically what he wanted. Stories number 16. My best friend accidentally sent me a text about secretly hating me. Hi everyone, long-time listener of THT and FKS. Looking for advice or comfort, as I am truly heartbroken. I 20F, and my best friend 21F have been friends since high school. Now, we are a part of the same college friend group. Friday night, everyone was hanging out together like we typically do on the weekends. I had 1 drink, and my best friend had 3 to 4 drinks before we went back to her house. Everything was totally normal. I wasn't exactly planning to stay the night, but she pleaded with me and said we could get breakfast in the morning if I stayed. I obliged, and she told me she was going to sleep alone in her room so that she could call her long-distance boyfriend. So, after telling each other, I love you, good night, and giving hugs, I went to go sleep in the guest room. About 20 minutes later I received a text from her that read, she's staying in the guest room so I don't want to shit talk her too loudly. I responded with a simple, and received another, longer text complaining about how she just can't figure out a respectful way to get rid of me. It was probably around 2:45 a.m. at this point, but I packed up all of my things and snuck out the back door. The next morning she sent me a voice memo apologizing and saying that she was drunk and meant to text her boyfriend but I'm just not that fun anymore, and we've grown apart. My heart is broken. It feels wrong to bring it up to anyone else in our group of friends, so I've spent the last few days grieving, and trying to remind myself that I'm only 20 and can still bounce back and find new friends. Unfortunately, my 21st birthday is in a few weeks and now, I fear I won't have anyone to spend it with. I guess, posting this and venting anonymously online to a bunch of strangers might help. I'm not sure, but while I wait for my emergency therapy appointment tomorrow, any advice is appreciated. Stories number 17. I lied on my resume and got a job paying $140,000 in finance. I've worked in finance and banking for approximate 3 years. Prior to that, I worked in the health industry within the US, running my own little business. After my business sank during COVID, I got a job as a bank teller. I then got a promotion to a more senior position within the branch. I performed really well and stayed in this role for a year. I then got ambitious and started looking at other jobs, then applied for a manager position in business banking. Skills needed for that job included a degree or close to obtaining one, previous lending experience with businesses, and management of high-value clients. I technically enrolled in business school years ago, and I put on my resume 1 year remaining. I also helped some business customers with personal accounts in my previous role. Although on my resume, I lied and said I've had vast experience in obtaining credit for businesses. I googled financial reports and the lingo for credit, so when they asked me in my interview, I nailed it. Anyway, I landed a job as a business banking manager on $140,000 a year with no degree. I was previously on $75,000. So this is a massive jump. Stories number 18. Am I the asshole? For not allowing my late ex-husband's siblings to pick up our daughter for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Am I the asshole? For not allowing my ex-in-laws to come for Christmas. In January 2024 my ex-husband, the father of my daughter, 8, and stepdad to my oldest, 15, passed away unexpectedly. Our divorce was not amicable, but we had gotten to a place where we were able to peacefully co-parent, and he even spent Thanksgiving and Christmas Day 2023 with the kids and I at my house. After his passing, his brother, 42, well, call him James, and sister, well, call her Lottie, 53, treated me badly, calling me a gold digger and greedy because I said that our daughter was his legal next of kin and should receive his belongings. She was able to receive some of his shirts and a few items of memorabilia, but most of his stuff, furniture, cowboy hat, boots, jerseys, and car were taken by his sister and brother. At the memorial service they insisted that my son, his stepson, be left out of the eulogy completely because he was his legal child. This crushed my son. He was truly heartbroken. My ex and him had a rocky relationship and were working to repair it before his passing. Fast forward to now, neither Lottie nor James has text/called or asked for an update on their niece or asked how she is doing. They have on occasions where we have been at the same event not even made an effort to come and say hi. Then I got a phone call from them last week asking if they could pick her up on Thursday for Thanksgiving since it would have been their brother's year for the holiday. And that they would like to do the same for Christmas. I said absolutely not, they could not just pick her up, that we already had plans for Thanksgiving and Christmas. They said I was being an asshole and that I was keeping her away from them. When I offered to meet them at a local restaurant for a meal the weekend after Thanksgiving and Christmas to celebrate with them, they said they were owed time, just for them and her. I told them that they were not entitled to anything, and if they couldn't accept what I was willing to do to accommodate them, they were out of luck. So am I the asshole? Stories number 19. Husband singing to dog in the kitchen. I stayed downstairs last night on the sofa, without really sleeping much, because I had intense nausea. I still feel crappy. My husband came down a little bit ago and brought me another blanket, so now I'm warm and cozy. And I hear him in the kitchen, singing and talking to the dog as he makes himself some breakfast. Even though I'm really tired and now with the extra blanket might actually be able to sleep a little and the singing is keeping me up, it's also making me grin. It makes me extra happy because this dog was originally my husband's, but I didn't know how he'd adjust to having an indoor dog. In his home country, she lived in a narrow, fenced side yard that ran alongside his house. He'd pulled her from a pound where she was going to be put down, but where he lived, people don't really keep dogs inside the house. When we went back to get her, his mom asked 6 or 7 times if we were sure the dog was really going to live inside the house with us. So for years the dog just lived in that little yard, with food and water but never a lot of attention. Because it wasn't really in his cultural vocabulary or lived experience, I wasn't sure what kind of pet parent my husband would turn out to be, but he really took to it. He takes really good care of her, but also sends me pictures of her sleeping by his side in her little bed when he's working at his desk. And now he's singing to her in the kitchen, making me smile when I should be sleeping. Stories number 20. My 18F mom died when I was 7. My father, aka step-siblings' dad, remarried a year later. His new wife had 3 kids, A, 8M, B, 6M, C, 3F. He said she wanted a dad for her kids and he wanted a mom for me. I remember telling him I didn't want a new mom. He said I would understand later. My step-siblings' dad basically stopped doing anything alone with me. No more camping nights in the backyard or movie nights which we had done every week for years. Nothing. He spent time with all his new kids, to bond. It's been 11 years and he still doesn't have time for me. He's bonding with them. He stoked coming to my games when I got to HS. His wife, I have nothing in common. I play 3 sports and I'm on the speech team. She's very girly and like girl trips to buy clothes and makeup at different malls. She knows I don't want to go but just tells my step-siblings' dad that she invited me. I have a teammate I play 2 sports with. Her parents have become like my own. She said she is totally fine with it. I'd make sure all the time I don't want to take someone else's parents. But she's always the one to invite me over, brings her parents to my swim meets. She knows no one will be there for me. Invited me to go shopping for Mother/Father Day gifts and says they're from both of us. Her parents get me holiday gifts and say I'm always welcome. Senior night at basketball, I told her my step-siblings' dad isn't going to walk me around the floor. He doesn't even come to games. She asked her dad to walk both of us and he was happy to. In a small town that made the paper they thought it was sweet. My step-siblings' dad flipped out, took us all to therapy. He asked why he hadn't been asked. I said he didn't come to games. He said he didn't know I played basketball anymore. I asked if that's why he didn't come to swim or softball when he couldn't miss A and B's practices, or come to speech meets when he went to C's dance recitals. He just stared at me and said he didn't know I still did those either. I asked why he talked for days about B's camping trip but didn't ask about my senior trip to Mexico. He said he didn't know I went. I said he signed the form. He admitted he didn't read it. I asked if he remembered the last time I called him Dad. He said he didn't know I stopped. I said May 13, 2021. He said that was the day ABC started. I said I know. You stopped being my dad when you started being theirs. I walked out of therapy. Edit. I played all three since I was a toddler, so I'm not sure why he thought I stopped. He never asked why I came home a couple hours after practice or went out on weekends for game days. When I talked about games, he said I thought I was just playing with friends. BC all my friends play. Update got deleted. Basically I'm getting some info on my trust and belongings it paid for. My friend's dad tried to confront my step-sibling's dad about why I can't go over anymore, but he just shut the door on him, and I check in daily with my friend or her parents via phone. My step-siblings are all mad at both their parents and are being very supportive. Update because a lot of people were worried about me not being able to get my things from my bio father's house and going back to therapy. Turns out it's not even necessary. After my last post, my stepmother, SM, wanted us all to go to the lake house. That's her happy place / safe space / sanctuary, she says, and it's her answer to everything. Once the boys out, she sends my bio father and her sons to the lake house. Time with her daughter. Lake house. Time alone. Lake house by herself. She does photography there, she's right. It does look like a postcard. 2-story, cabin, style. They never took me for the girls' trips or boy trips, only when everyone went together. My step-siblings won't call bio father dad anymore. My SM said if he isn't their dad and she isn't my mom, why are they even married? Bio F asked if she wanted a divorce. She said she didn't sign up for the drama. They argued and we went hang out by the lake. We've been getting along great now against the parents, which I didn't see coming. Anyway, we went back to therapy yesterday and my step-sis brought up, are they getting divorced? Bio F said not if they can work it out in therapy. Therapist asked if it could be amicable cause it's obvious they're cold to each other. SM said her kids could see bio father but she would just want her place. He said that wasn't possible. BC it's actually mine. BC my mom had it before they were married, it's part of the prenup. SM was livid, ugly, cried. Mad all the way home. Then asked about the house we live in. Boyfriend tried to get her out of the kitchen but she screamed. He admitted that my grandpa gave it to my mom as a wedding gift before they were married. Turns out he won't let me move out. BC the house is actually mine since I turned 18. She said split the savings. BC they had been living way below their means. He told her most the savings / certificates of deposits were accounts set up for me by mom's parents. She has been crying in her room and says I'm selfish for not letting her have the lake house my great Gpa built, gave to my Gpa who gave it to my mom. Update 2. A lot of people have been asking how things are going. Way more than I expected, so here we go. I'm about to leave for college. Yay. As of right now my bio father, his wife, for now, are still living in my house and paying rent. I got a lawyer and they suggested retroactive rent as well. This will only go back to my 18th birthday and I officially own the house. My lawyer got me in touch with a good account that he uses for cases like this, who went over everything that is in my trust savings with the person at the bank, who oversaw giving me my allowances from my trust. My bio father hadn't taken any money directly from my accounts. BC they were unavailable until I turned 18 except for the one I used for daily use. I always got receipts that came out even, so I'm not worried about those. I did learn more about the property I own. This actually came out before the lawyer and accountant. BC my stepmother wanted some other property that's mine. There is a beach house she wanted and a smaller house that gets rented out and the money goes to one of my accounts. She was furious she doesn't get either. She and my boyfriend bicker and honestly it's hilarious. X. Her, why didn't you ever tell me that none of the money was yours? Him, if money was so important to you, why didn't you ever get a job? Also I may get their cars because my boyfriend had terrible credit and used my house to get the loan as collateral. Same with the boat. She's a lot madder than him. My step-siblings don't even speak to my bio father anymore. BC they feel like he made them the bad guys and I told them he didn't and it wasn't their fault at all. Stories number 21. I shouldn't have joined my daughter's game. We're playing hiding and seeking. Terry informed me as I stuck my head into her room. I couldn't tell whether she was just cluing me into her schedule with her new imaginary friend, or issuing a command. In the drawer, she added, pointing at the little white cabinet in the corner of the room. Nobody could fit in there, Terry, I said, laughing slightly. She loaded up her sulkiest pout. Could too, she said. Just gotta squeeze super small. Well, don't you go trying, I said. The last thing I needed was my 5-year-old taking up contortionism. Not me, silly daddy, she said. Behind the door, nothing made me happier than playing with her, and I knew I didn't do it enough. There just weren't the hours in the day, not now we were on our own. I'm sorry, I said. This isn't Daddy's playing time, this is Daddy's chore time. I'll come play later. To my surprise, I didn't get another pout. She just nodded. Okay, Daddy. Play later. Behind the curtain. So the imaginary friend was taking the playtime shift for me. I wished for a moment that we could swap, me hiding and seeking, it taking phone calls and working through spreadsheets, washing up, cooking dinner. The curtain billowed slightly as I stepped out, and Terry's excited squeal made me smile and sigh. I see you, she declared. Daddy's chore time took much of the day, especially since work kept calling with emergencies. It was hours later before I went up to check on her again, though I'd heard laughing off and on the whole time. I followed her merry giggling upstairs. As soon as I reached the landing, I froze, bile on the back of my tongue. Terry's bedroom door was shut, as it rarely was during the day. There was a silhouette imprinted upon it, shaded in gray-black rot. It was man-shaped, more or less. Where the eyes would be shown 2 circles of the white paint which had previously covered the whole door. Where the mouth would be, the wood had rotted through, leaving a gaping hole. I crossed the landing in 2 desperate steps, my daughter's name stalling in my throat. I had to protect her, from what? What could have done this? I threw the door open. The room was in ruins. The curtains hung in tattered shreds, wet and stinking. The little corner cabinet looked scorched, charcoal hand shapes curled over the lip of its drawer. Mold was spreading to fill the outline of a man on the duvet cover of the bed. Playtime, Daddy? Asked Terry. Oh, I can see you. You're under the bed. What happened? Her wardrobe, her floor lamp, even her posters, layered in overlapping decay. Hiding and seeking, she said, cheerful. It's his favorite. Something cold and wet touched the back of my neck. Ice, pain, increasingly distant. Rot, inside. I see you. Terry called. You're behind Daddy. Stories number 22. Am I the asshole? For calling out my boyfriend's family for changing the sleeping arrangement rules to favor his brother and SIL? I, 24F, and my boyfriend Nathan, 26M, have been together for 6 years. This year, we traveled to his parents' house for Thanksgiving. For context, Nathan is one of 4 brothers, Alex, single, Jack, married to Jill, Nathan, me, and Luke, married to Millie, with a nearly 2-year-old. Everyone lives out of state except Luke and Millie. Nathan and I have the longest drive at 9 hours. Here's the issue, Nathan's parents, Mary and John, have only 2 guest bedrooms. 3 couples tend to visit at a time, meaning someone has to sleep on an air mattress in between the rooms. The first year I visited, I was told they'd rotate who gets the air mattress to keep it fair. But after 3 years on it, we were told it was now, first come, first serve. Nathan's job doesn't allow much holiday time, so we're almost always last to arrive and stuck on the air mattress. While annoying, we understood, it seemed logical. This year was different. Nathan and I got Monday through Thursday off and would arrive first. I talked to Mary about how we were to finally get a bedroom, and she laughed, saying, yep, first come, first serve. Millie, who I've grown close to, knew we were thrilled about the prospect of getting a bed this year. She even decided to come early too so we could hang out, and we planned I'd take the twin room, and she'd take the queen. Here's where it gets frustrating. The day we left, I texted Mary our ETA. A few hours later, Millie texted me, saying Luke had spoken with Mary, who mentioned Jack and Jill would get the queen room and Luke and Millie the twin room, leaving Nathan and me on the air mattress again. Luke called Mary out, reminding her of the first come, first serve rule, but she suddenly claimed she'd never said that and justified her decision because Jack and Jill would be staying an extra day. For context, Jack and Jill were arriving a day later than us, so this reasoning felt like an excuse. When we arrived, Nathan brought up the rule again, but Mary got defensive, claimed she didn't remember ever saying it, and refused to budge. I said several sarcastic comments as I felt this was really unfair. I pointed out rules are rules, until they didn't serve Jill. And that we always do it a certain way until that means Jill has to take the air mattress and she could come up with any justification but that doesn't make it fair. I even pointed out it's silly for us to now have to board out dogs, and drive 8 hours before anyone else got here just to change the rules now. She had plenty of time to bring this up with our many conversations leading up to this. She became increasingly sassy about the situation, leaving us feeling defeated and, frankly, a little targeted. Am I the asshole? For speaking up over thinking Mary unfairly changed the rules to suit Jack and Jill, and that we're always stuck with the short end of the stick. Stories number 23. I think my 27F husband, 30M, raped me during an autistic meltdown, but I'm not sure how to talk to him about it. For some background, I, 27F, have level 1 autism. While I have lower support needs, I do get overwhelmed and have meltdowns occasionally. My husband, 30M, is usually so supportive and helpful with things I need help with like grocery shopping, cooking, and cleaning. He's never hurt me or called me names or anything. We've been together for 2 years and got married a month ago. A few times after a meltdown, he's asked to have sex and LV said yes. But this time, I was actively in a meltdown. I'm not violent but I will cry and sometimes try to scratch at myself, which he has restrained me before. I can't speak during them and it's hard to even process any thoughts. He restrained me again this time, which is okay with me. Then, I suddenly was on my stomach and he held my arms and head down while he put himself inside. I cried and struggled, but he kept going until he was finished. After, he cleaned me up, and then made jokes about how he was worried about how I was still screaming at first. He seemed so casual and unbothered. I hesitantly asked him later about why he did it and he said that he's convinced that him having sex with me helped me calm down from my meltdown. I did stop crying towards the end, so I just feel confused. I feel like he was trying to help me in a way, but I can't shake the feeling that it was wrong. I can't tell anyone about it in my life and when I think about it I feel sick. I don't know where to go from here. I want to talk to him about what happened again so we can agree it won't happen again, but it makes me feel anxious. How can I approach this? Edit. Thank you guys for commenting your perspectives and your concerns. I'm continuing to read them and realize that it was rape. I just feel so confused because he is otherwise so sweet and caring. It's hard to imagine that he really wanted to have sex because I was on my period and he doesn't like to do stuff during it. I really thought he was doing it to help me. I really can't leave. I don't have a job and don't have family to support me. He also works with police, so making a report might not be taken seriously. I do appreciate your advice and kind words. Thank you. Stories number 24. Am I the asshole? For saying I guess I have to choose my brother. Obligatory throwaway, but might make it a shadow account because I have a lot of family and people I know on my main so sometimes it's weird or had to post things. My original kept getting pulled by mods over at Am I the Asshole? For their rules, I guess I'm too upset to read through them properly, so a friend suggested to post here. The quotes might not be spot on, but it's how the conversation headed. I, 32M, have a younger brother Sam, 10M/fake name. He is from my dad's second marriage after my mother passed away. My dad was a good dad. He grieved with me and got me therapy. He waited years before dating and then waited until he was sure it was something good before introducing me to my brother's mother. He shut down her attempts at being overly involved or motherly early on because I admitted to not being comfortable with it. She seemed to understand. After they married and had my brother, his wife suffered from PPD and went AWOL. Dad said she left a letter admitting to wanting to hurt Sam. A year or so later, Dad received court documents demanding a divorce and terminating parental rights. She took nothing in the divorce because she didn't want any more interactions than necessary. According to her lawyer, she looked very guilty and ashamed and not in a good way. We haven't heard from her in about 8 years. Dad, 61M, had a health scare during COVID. He was hospitalized and because he was now high risk and in a very bad situation of being in the hospital with a COVID floor/wing, he asked me to take in Sam until he was cleared. That turned into a long talk about what would happen to Sam if his condition got worse or something else happened. I agreed to take in Sam and the paperwork was done. Sam is a good kid. I feel like we are similar in a lot of ways, growing up without mothers, liking the same things, both are dog people, and we have a strong connection. Sam is well behaved and tries hard in school. Math is his downfall though, so I try to help with that. We have the occasional weekend hangout or trip to the movies or mall or whatever. We have had the standing Comic-Con yearly outing for the last 2 years. It's made dating a little tricky. I know, upfront and honest. I always ask how my dates feel about kids and go on to explain that I suspect I might be taking in my brother in the next 5 years. A few have cut the dates short, which was understandable. But the one single mother I was getting to know did the same and said something like, I don't want a guy with that kind of baggage. That put me off dating for like a year. I had thought trying to date someone with kids would have worked out better. Recently, I've been talking this girl Kayla, 29F. Kayla has been really understanding and she knows I may have to take in my brother. She is kind and sweet. She has no kids, but wants marriage and kids. I don't really like the idea of marriage, but that's something we can figure out. I don't mind the idea of kids. I think 3 would be the max, not including Sam because he is a little older already. Recently, things have been getting more serious and we are talking about different parenting styles, how to navigate the marriage thing, she brought up prenups in an attempt to make me feel more secure in the idea of marriage, which, as awful as it makes me feel, it kinda does, and housing. We want to live together for a year before diving deeper and more serious. I have been looking into houses already because of my situation with Sam, because a kid needs a yard. I showed her the houses, all at least 3 bedrooms with room to grow, finished attics or basements. I told her I would pay for the house since it's my idea to have something on the bigger side, and she can save the money she would have put towards rent for a down payment or something on her end. She could get a rental property as a safety net since this would be considered pre-marital assets. Even if she gets the house paid off during the marriage, we can write up a postnup for the house itself if need be, just so she isn't feeling weird about not having her name on the house I want. I also told her she can have free range to decorate the house, minus the room set aside for Sam. This is where I might be the asshole. She asked me, room set aside for Sam? I explained that I was immediately going to pick a room and leave it mostly empty for Sam just in case. That leaves us at least one room for family growth in the immediate time frame and an attic or basement to grow into if need be because we haven't put a number on kids yet. Sam could potentially take an attic or basement to start, depending on his age, so that would give us 2 rooms. I think 10 to 12 is too young for that, but at 13, he might see it as his space or a sort of man cave. It's all about Sam then. Right now, I have to keep what would be good and easy for him in mind. Our possible future children are hypothetical and not here yet. Our dad may very well not make it to Sam's graduation. Sam's room wouldn't be permanent, and I could pretty easily float the idea of a cool loft mini apartment to a teen. Not so much a tween that dislikes quiet. So if our kids want the cool mini apartment, then what? Depends on if Sam is out on his own in the world. Depending on age, he might already be moving rooms once. I'm not giving him a space and then yanking it out from under him a second time when I will have put a lot of effort into making it comfortable for him. She got really upset and quiet. I told her, we will make the other rooms awesome for the kids too, once they start showing a bit of personality. Baby rooms are different from tween rooms. And I would want our kids closer because they are going to be much younger. I wouldn't want them going up and down a set of stairs to get to us or 2 sets for a drink in the middle of the night. By the time they might want a mini apartment, Sam could have launched from the nest, but this world is crashing hard so he might not be out at 18. Which brings me back to the math of, if we start having kids next year, Sam will be 18 by the time they are 7 and younger, which would be too young for me to want them in an attic or basement. She demanded to know what I would do if they did want his room. I would explain to them they can't have it and that we should find epic things to make their rooms just as awesome. I would let them help design, pick paints and rugs and things. A 7 to 10-year-old is going to be thrilled to have that chance. And what if they still want his room? Not a look-alike, his room. Then I would say someone was filling their heads with nonsense if they wanted his room for no other reason than it was the attic or basement. Most kids that young get scared of the dark or weird sounds, and they wouldn't give up their place closer to their parents unless pushed. Sam was 6 when our dad had his health scare. He was not keen on the guest room in my apartment because it was still strange. But if our kids just really wanted it, what would you do? Would you pick them? I might be the asshole. I guess I choose Sam. I was so frustrated and done with the conversation at that point because it felt like we were running in circles. I gave all these reasons for Sam to have his own room to start, and why he would be put in the attic or basement. Am I the asshole? She refuses to talk to me right now. Stories number 25. My coworker showed up to my apartment unannounced. My 26F coworker, 36M, knows where I live because we've had the same ride home a few times. He had been over once before to help bring my groceries upstairs. We stopped at the store on the way home. We were a little flirty for a few days, but I ultimately rejected him long before this happened. He was pressuring, immature, and I didn't like the age gap. I live by myself with my daughter, and this especially made me anxious because of that. Luckily, she was at her dad's at the time. It was 7 a.m., when I'm usually sleeping. He woke me up with the doorbell. According to him, he got stranded because his truck broke down, so he walked 2 miles to get to my apartment. His home is closer than that, by the way. I offered to give him a ride, but when I went in to grab my stuff, he followed me in and tried to kiss me. I ran outside because he can be pushy. Once he got outside, I offered to call him a cab, he said no, and I went back inside. This happened a while ago, and I barely talked to him for a few days. It's a little awkward now, but I've been planning on getting another job for unrelated reasons. No one thinks he had bad intentions, but doesn't understand boundaries. I don't know what to think. Why would he think it's okay to make a move on me when I rejected him? ETA, thank you all for helping open my eyes to just how bad this was. The ones saying he didn't have bad intentions just don't want to see him for who he really is. I honestly don't even want to go to work again, but it's my only income. I'm going to look for other jobs this week. There is also no HR, and my bosses are similar to him. I told one of them and nothing happened. Stories number 26. Am I the asshole? For only paying for one of my daughter's weddings and down payment. So, I, 50M, have 3 kids, Sarah, 35F, Jessica, 25F, and Ben, 23M. My wife and I had Sarah when we were both 16. It wasn't easy, but with both our parents' support, we could finish college while we raised her. When it was time for her to go to college, we didn't have the money to help her. So she took out loans and paid for them herself. We learned from our mistakes and started saving for her siblings Jessica and Ben, who got around a $100K college fund and had no debt. Through all of this, Sarah never complained. She finished her education, got a fantastic job, and could repay the loans in just 3 years while staying with us to save as much as possible. She has also helped us a lot with babysitting her younger siblings and has always been selfless and helped out in any way she could, maybe even to a fault. So when she told me 5 years ago she was getting married, I talked to my wife and told her how bad I felt we never did anything for her and that I wanted to give her the inheritance I got from my grandmother, which was around $50K, to help pay for her wedding and down payment on the house. Luckily, my wife agreed, and even though she didn't really need it, I know it meant a lot to her. The issue is this: Jessica is getting married next year and had assumed we would plan a similar gift for her. She was quite surprised when I told her that we never discussed such plans, and even if we wanted to, we didn't have the budget for it. She told us it wasn't fair that we paid for her sister but would not do the same for her. I tried to explain the situation, telling her that in the long run, we spend twice as much on her and her brother as we ever did on Sarah. However, she insisted that Sarah was already well off, noting that Sarah and her husband had paid off their house and were doing extremely well financially. I told her that this had nothing to do with how much money her sister had, this was us finally being able to do something for our oldest child, who had to sacrifice so much because we had her at such a young age. She didn't take it well, left angry, and won't speak to us. My wife thinks we should maybe take out a small loan and give her the money because she isn't used to not talking to her kids and is sad she is being left out of the wedding preparations. She is even afraid of us not getting invited to the wedding. But I have put my foot down and won't budge because she is not entitled to our money. Now even Sarah is saying that this is getting out of hand and even offered to help pay half the money. But personally, I'm at a point where I'd rather burn the $50K than give it to her. Sarah and my wife think that this is not worth destroying our family over, but I think that giving in will only make her more entitled in the long run. Update, 8 days later. Thank you all for the fantastic comments and personal messages from my last post. After reading the comments, I felt even more convinced that I was in the right, so I sat down with my wife to talk. Following many of your suggestions, I showed her the post and asked her to read it. She wasn't happy, especially when she saw how many people had read it, but she was also really curious. This has been on her mind a lot lately, and she wanted to know what all of you were thinking. She had a few issues with my comments. She believes that when I said I would rather burn the money, it indicates I need to change my approach to problem solving. While it might be easy for people on the internet to suggest that parents cut off contact with their child, she is not ready to lose her little girl. Additionally, she thinks my statement about doing my duty and wanting to take care of myself comes across as selfish and is not something a parent should say. She believes there is a reasonable compromise. Instead of giving her the full $50K, we can offer her half for the wedding. This way, we can cover most of the expenses from our savings, borrow the rest from Sarah if needed, and pay her back within a year. I told her right away that I was not going to do that. I told her that we could separate our finances and that she could return to work full-time to help Jessica pay for the wedding. However, I made it clear that I was done. As selfish as it may seem, I don't feel obligated to Jessica anymore, and I want to enjoy my life while I still can. She replied, as she always does, that I am stubborn, and she would take that step if it meant keeping the family together. I told her it was fine but not to come to me complaining about her health when she went back to work full-time. A couple of days ago, she came to me and said that she agreed with my proposal. We made a plan to open a joint bank account where we would deposit our monthly expenses. After that, we can each use our personal money however we like. We decided on an amount to keep in our savings account for emergencies and agreed to split the remaining funds 50-50. I even agreed to cover 60% of the money needed for our joint expenses. This is the first time we will have more than one bank account, so I'm a bit nervous about how it will turn out. I also believe she mentioned talking to her boss about working more hours, but I want to avoid getting involved in that discussion. I spoke with Sarah and expressed my concerns about giving Jessica any money, which I believe is a bad idea. However, Sarah insists that she wants to help. She mentioned that while she agrees with my viewpoint, she doesn't want their mom to return to work full-time. She clarified that her decision to help was aimed at supporting their mom, not Jessica. I told her that it was her money and she could do as she pleased, but like her mom, I wouldn't involve myself in the situation any further. Right before I wrote this post, I sent an email to Jessica expressing my feelings for her. I clarified where I stood and mentioned that she could decide how involved I would be in her wedding. I don't expect a reply, but now I'll have to wait and see what happens. Edit. I realize now that I didn't explain something clearly. My wife wants to pay $25,000 for the wedding, which she and Sarah have agreed to split. She believes this is a reasonable compromise, but I disagree with her. Stories number 27. Am I in the wrong for telling my ex-husband that our kids are justified in feeling like they don't have a father? First of all, I don't know much about how subreddits work, but someone told me that my profile was shared on one, and I have some words for those involved. The discussion was about how I could afford private school tuition on a kindergarten teacher's salary. To clarify, I am no longer a kindergarten teacher, I am a high school teacher, and salaries in education vary significantly depending on the country. In my country, salaries in education are quite competitive compared to other jobs. To clear up any further assumptions, micro businesses, $280 small businesses, $315 medium-sized businesses, $350 large businesses, $370. My field, education, early education, kindergarten $800 to $1,000, primary education, $900 to $1,100, secondary education, $1,100 to $1,300, secondary education with 5 years of experience, $1,300 to $1,400, associate professor, master's degree, $1,050 to $1,400, full professor, doctorate, $1,400 to $1,750. The cost of living here is affordable, and I mentioned that in several comments. I am not from the United States, where life is more expensive. In my country, this salary is more than enough to live comfortably. I am not rich, but my kids enjoy an excellent quality of life. Private school tuition varies. There are schools as low as $120 per month or less, and of course, there are elite schools that are much more expensive. We use local currency, not dollars. I also have other sources of income that are irrelevant here. Now, to stop the speculation, people assumed I was from multiple countries, calculated my monthly tuition costs, and even tallied up all my expenses. The only thing you missed was calculating the cost of my divorce. Let me save you some trouble, I didn't pay a single cent, and my ex left with nothing but the clothes on his back. Careful not to choke on that. As for my kids not being well cared for, my kids are perfectly fine, and as long as I'm breathing, no one will take that away from them. I saw a lot of concern for my children, but here's a question for you, what about your kids? Are they okay? Did you pay what you owe for their care? When was the last time you saw them? There's no need to worry about my kids. If any of those users want more details, feel free to contact me, and I'll happily send over some bills for you to pay since you're so interested in my finances and expenses. And regarding my divorce, it was far from amicable, not because of custody that was never an issue but because my ex lied at every turn to delay and obstruct the process. I didn't accept it then, I don't accept it now, and I never will, not in a million years. For those still questioning my divorce, here are my words to you: once there's infidelity, there's no family left. This clarification isn't for those who offered helpful comments or advice on my post. End of the informational break. Now, the actual update. The day after my post here, my ex was arrested for domestic violence and child abuse. The father of the boy involved filed a complaint. My ex's wife defended him, claiming her son was a brat and that this wasn't the first time my ex had been violent with him or his younger siblings. This left me surprised because, as far as I know, my ex had never mentioned that the teenager had been beaten. My ex-sister-in-law said that her brother, meaning my ex, never brought it up. I asked my kids if their stepbrother had ever touched them or been violent with them. Both said no. My children are comfortable telling me anything, and their answer was no. My ex and his wife have since changed their story about the incident. Now, their version is that the boy misbehaved, my ex tried to talk to him, and the boy hit him first, so the mother hit her son to pull him off my ex. Child protection authorities here are usually very strict when a case interests them or when the harm suffered by the child is severe. I haven't seen the teenager myself. The teenager has been placed in a shelter for abused youth. Stories number 28. Neighbor attempted to get into my home and then started firing a shotgun into my residence. Location: Ohio. Direct neighbor was drinking heavily and at 5:45 a.m. came to my house attempting to get in and then started firing his shotgun into my property. He stated that a ghost had told him that this was a purge situation and that I was going to harm his children and wife. This man has no wife or children and lives alone. I was armed upstairs and my wife and 15-month son were barricaded in the closet as he was firing away outside. We have him on video trying to get through the fence and then trying to shoot through it. He told the police that he was shooting at me on the other side of fence because I had a gun. I just got back from his bond hearing and they originally had $250K cash, GPS, and cannot return to his residence. He lawyered up and got the bond down to 10%. I just feel lost in this whole process. My wife is a wreck, I've missed a week of work, I can't sleep. Every bump in the night now is a nightmare, we are just terrified. We are now speaking about moving, but we spent so much money into our forever home, just did siding and new room and new deck. My question to the group is, what can I do? I have obviously amped up the security of the home, but we don't feel safe. Is there any legal action I can take? At the bail hearing all they have said is AF2 felony for firing a firearm into a habituated residence. Is there more I can do? He has terrified my family and myself. Note, previous to this incident we were in all good standings. I was even at his retirement party 2 weeks before. Never had one issue with this neighbor since I moved in. Always kind and friendly. Didn't know the extent of his drinking. The day previous to the shooting he even drove himself to the hospital because he thought he was having a heart attack and they discharged him. I apologize for the book everyone. Stories number 29. Turns out my wife's affair was worse than I thought. Thanks to everyone who commented on my original post. I wanted to share an update about where things stand now. For those asking how I didn't notice her affair for 4 years, it's because Leah was always incredibly private. She was adamant about boundaries and would shut me down if I asked too many questions. She handled the rent, utilities, and her own expenses, while I covered groceries, the kids' school costs, internet, water, and anything extra. She claimed it was fair since we both worked, and I didn't push because I trusted her and didn't want to create unnecessary conflict. Looking back, I can see how I missed the signs, but at the time, I didn't think questioning her was necessary. After finding out about her affair, I had DNA tests done for both kids. My son is biologically mine, but my daughter isn't. That was a tough pill to swallow, but it doesn't change anything for me. I've been her father in every way that matters, and I love her like my own. I believe the person who raises a child is their real parent, and no court is going to convince me otherwise. Right now, I'm in the middle of the legal process. The divorce itself hasn't been finalized yet, but I've made it clear that I'm fighting for full custody of both kids. I've explained to the court why I believe Leah isn't fit to have primary custody. Her betrayal wasn't just a personal one, it shows a complete disregard for the stability and well-being of our family. The court process is slow, and so far, we've only had preliminary hearings. I've provided evidence of her infidelity and the double life she led, and I've asked for a full psychological evaluation for both of us to ensure the best decision is made for the kids. I'm also working on showing the court that I've been the primary caregiver emotionally and financially. My lawyer has told me it's a tough battle, especially since courts often lean toward joint custody, but I'm not backing down. To those who said my story sounded fake, I get it. This is the kind of nightmare you think only happens in movies or to someone else. I wouldn't believe it either if I wasn't living it. All I can say is, I hope you never go through something like this. It destroys everything you thought you knew about your life. For now, I'm staying focused on my kids and doing everything I can to give them a stable and loving home. They're the only good thing to come out of all this, and I won't let them down. Thank you for your support. It means more than you know. Stories number 30. My parents had money but died without a will and left me a mess to sort out with my sibling I'm newly on bad terms with. Yes, I have included the state or country in the post. My mom was a woman of some means, she ran a small medical practice for several decades before dying unexpectedly. When she died she left a handwritten one-sentence will that said, I leave everything to me, my father, and my brother. When she died, we took no action estate-wise because my father was in poor health and I was swamped with helping him. He died last week. As far as I know he did not have a will. We're in Virginia which says when there is no will, the estate is split equally between the two of us which is fine by me, but I suspect this will not be fine by my brother. During my dad's illness, my brother and I had a falling out and are no longer on good terms. I am wanting to start the process of settling my parents' estates, but doing so when we're on bad terms is bound to be complicated. I'm already speaking to an estate lawyer, but I have some questions. Let's say I want to move forward with handling the estate and my brother just doesn't want me to / wants to take no action, can I still move forward without him? My brother currently lives with his family in a house my parents own. He is not on the deed. I suspect he will try to resist any change to this status quo for as long as possible because that means he can continue living for free. I had planned on us being co-administrators of the estate because I just want to do everything as fairly, cleanly, and evenly as possible. I am worried about the appearance of impropriety on my end. If I do move ahead without him, would this be a mistake? Should I do it on my own and wait to see if he challenges it in court and still do whatever is needed to split things 50-50ths? My mom operated a private medical practice where she was the only doctor working with a staff of assistants and nurses. Shutting this down will be a massive headache, but I think that's what is needed. My brother expressed some interest in potentially hiring a doctor he would manage and keeping the clinic running. He is not a doctor and neither am I. I think this is a terrible idea and want nothing to do with it. If he insists on moving forward with the clinic, can this be considered an asset that he essentially buys me out of so that I can be financially, legally, and administratively divested from however he might run this business? My mom left my dad a $1 million life insurance policy. The check for this policy came in while he was incapacitated in the hospital. According to my brother, he got a paper check from her insurance guy and put it in my dad's account for him. I have seen no evidence to this effect. Dad had no POA and was essentially comatose during this time, so no money should have been spent from this insurance. If my brother misused it, will an attorney be able to create a paper trail to prove it? Would that be a crime? Any and all advice is appreciated. I am in way over my head here. Stories number 31. Am I the asshole for getting pissed at my fiancé's friend? My fiancé's 31M friend, 26M, let's call friend Brian, brought his stepdaughter and son over to play with our kid. After bailing on previous plans with my fiancé, Brian offered to buy food for this hangout. No one asked him to and we told him it wasn't necessary. He insisted. My fiancé told him he'd like pizza since it's cheap for such a large group. I am breastfeeding and I need to eat and cannot skip meals without getting very ill. Food took a while, but when it arrived I noticed it was one pizza and a side of chicken poppers covered in a sauce. Brian gives each kid 2 slices of pizza. The kids get upset because he ordered cheese, his son wanted cheese and the other 2 wanted pepperoni. I'm noticing there are only 2 slices left and Brian is eating the chicken poppers that he says he got just for him when the kids ask if they can have some. He did not get food for my fiancé and me. He turns to us and goes, "Do y'all want me to order y'all something?" A. It is already well past dinner because food was delayed over an hour. B. I'm already starting to feel ill at this point and need to eat quickly. I got pissed. Made a face discreetly to my partner and I left the room. My partner followed me and asked what was wrong. I told him that if I'd known his friend wasn't ordering for us I would have fixed something a long time ago to eat, or I would have gladly gotten food for everyone. I also told him it was incredibly rude to order food and not get things for us with the initial order, but to get something just for him and only get the pizza his son wanted. He could have even done half pepperoni and this other 2 would have gotten what they wanted. My fiancé just looked at me dumbfounded. I asked to be left alone. My fiancé is making me feel like I was unreasonable to get upset. So am I the asshole? Edit to add, I saw age mentioned. I'm 27. Second edit, I really should have framed this as an "am I overreacting?" post, because now that I'm level-headed I feel like I was justified to be angry and that my real original intent was to gauge if the level of anger/annoyance was reasonable. Also weird note, but yes, I have food in my house. I have a small child and I'm breastfeeding. If I don't keep this place stocked I'd have a riot on my hands. That's why I mentioned that if he'd said he wasn't ordering for my partner and me I could have figured something out. Stories number 32. Am I the asshole for cutting off my family after they didn't come to my graduation? Alright, so buckle up, this is gonna be a long story. The situation happened months ago, but I'm in the process of trying to forgive and wanted other opinions on the situation. So I, 18 female, recently graduated from high school a couple of months ago. I got the news about when my graduation would be in the first couple weeks of January. As soon as we got the news we sent it out to all family and friends. We wanted to get the information out ASAP because we knew that people had work and needed to take off. My mom even sent out custom digital invitations with my face on it asking people to RSVP. Fast forward to the month of graduation, I decided to go to my friend's graduation, which was about a week or 2 before mine, and she lived about 8 hours away. While there we get a phone call from my grandmother, saying that she might not be attending my graduation. Now she didn't call me, she called my mother and informed her. Now at first, I didn't care, but it started to bother me. In some context, my grandmother had been there for every event that I had going on in my life, birthdays, awards days, plays, presentations, dinners, etc. So I never questioned whether or not she'd attend my high school graduation. In my head, it was a given that she would. I tried not to trip as much because I knew she had been there for everything else, but it made me sad. In the following days, my mother had plenty of conversations with her, crying and expressing to her how important it was for her to attend. During one of these conversations, she told my mother that she had forgotten to take off work and needed to do so. But in the same breath told my mother that she needed to take off for a church event. This caused problems for both my mother and I. My grandmother has a track record of prioritizing everything else over family. This triggered my mother and she told her that if she didn't come it would affect other relationships with us. The day of graduation/birthday came and I woke up to a call from my grandmother, telling me happy birthday and how she was proud of me, as well as telling me she wouldn't be attending today. I also received a text from my aunt saying that she wouldn't be attending today as well, never heard anything from her previously. This honestly made me sad, because of all the drama leading up to the day as well as the day I wasn't able to enjoy the day. During graduation, all of my dad's side of the family was there. They live 16 hours away, but only a few of my mother's side weren't there. We all live in the same state. None of the faces that I expected to see there were there and that hurt me. Me and my cousin graduated on the same day, so later on in the day, I attended her graduation. While there I saw my grandmother, they were sitting in the front and me in the back. Not gonna lie, seeing her there made me upset. I feel like if you couldn't make it to one then you don't go to the other one. But I sat in silence and cheered as my cousin walked across the stage. After her graduation was done, me and mother didn't want to speak to my grandmother, so we left. While leaving she saw us and was yelling our name. We ignored her and kept walking. I got back to my car and cried because I felt bad. I don't like treating her like that, but at the same time, I was hurt. She had been to all her other grandchildren's graduations except mine. The next day I had a party to celebrate my graduation as well as my birthday. My grandmother was in attendance, but my aunt was nowhere to be found. She came with all these gifts for me to take to college: towels, washcloths, shower caddies, etc. But I still didn't want to speak with her. We asked my other aunt to tell her we didn't want to speak with her at the moment, but instead, she went in her car and cried. So my grandma followed me around all night and gave me a bunch of money. But no apology. I cried because I felt bad for not speaking with her. After all, I was hurt. The next day my mother sent messages to my aunt and grandmother telling them how our relationship had changed, etc. Later on, my cousin started to post nasty things about us on social media, calling us all types of names, because my aunt went and told them what my mother said but with her special twist. None of my family came to our defense. Instead, they silently watched as it happened or joined in. They upset me even more because I'd grown up around these people and have never seen them act this way, especially towards me. From that moment I decided to block my aunts and my grandmother. It's been about 6 months, I don't talk to them and don't plan to either. What they did upset me. I felt like I wasn't a priority and I wasn't a valued member of the family. They haven't made any effort to reach out to me, they are all unblocked now. I don't feel like I must try and fix the relationship because it wasn't me who messed it up, but my other family members feel otherwise. They said that what my mother said to them was wrong and were overreacting. So what do guys think? Am I the asshole for cutting off my family after they didn't come to my graduation? Stories number 33. Stories of the time you left a wedding early. My understanding is that most folks tough it out through the most brutal of weddings to respect the bride and groom. I once left a wedding early, though, and I'm curious if others have as well. Last year my so and I got invited to a wedding for a longtime friend. We arrived the day before and briefly ran into the bride and groom, who kind of set the stage by telling us that they had little interest in a wedding but were pressured into it. They likely had little say in the event as well, which had about 150 people. The next day we arrived at the venue. The wedding was outdoors in 95°F heat and 99% humidity, so us guests were overheating but weren't allowed indoors as that's where the wedding party was. The ceremony was a rough hour to get through, but we gritted our teeth and were relieved to get inside and get to our table. We got hungry during the cocktail hour since there weren't any snacks / hors d'oeuvres, but looked forward to getting some dinner. Too bad they had nearly run out by the time our table got called. Then to top it off, had zero accommodations for dietary restrictions. We grabbed what we could but were still hungry. Soon after, we also discovered that they ran out of water and the only place to get it was the bar, so tons of people lined up. While I waited in the line for 45 minutes, I noticed that the couple looked exhausted while their parents looked ecstatic. Then any activities there were during the reception revolved around showing off the couple. There was no guest involvement, and it was near impossible to interact with the couple. From my POV, it seemed like the goal of the event was really just to show them off while completely forgetting about the guests. Even the programs we had listed, when and where they were born, their favorite meals, activities, their jobs, etc. My hungry, thirsty, and impatient self got fed up, and as soon as I got some water, my so and I left, along with quite a few others. Post-wedding, the couple was very understanding, no hard feelings, no drama, but I still think about it from time to time. Any other leaving wedding early stories? Stories number 34. Overcame language barrier. For now, a new family moved into my apartment complex, and their preschool-age son is extremely interested in my dog. He walks right up to him and gives him a nice little pet. My dog is typically shy, but when I told the little boy this he didn't seem to register it. Makes sense in retrospect, lol, it's fine. My dog needs positive experiences to push his boundaries a little bit. This boy also likes to wave at me from their window, whether I have my dog with me or not. He's pretty funny. Most kids under 5 are scared of my dog because he's very large tall, but this kid just saw a big puppy and was insistent on petting him. I wanted to find his parents and introduce myself. I feel like it's good form. I wouldn't want some guy interacting with my son without knowing them personally. Fortunately, I ran into them as they were putting groceries away or something, so I got to speak with his dad. I soon realized that they don't speak English, and I don't speak Spanish. Well, I knew enough to get my name across, get the father's name, and attempt to say, "Have a good evening." I said goodnight. I will be learning more Spanish soon. LOL. Stories number 35. A general observation about posts men make about their wives. So I'm just scrolling on Reddit, as you do, and I see a post where a guy complains about struggling to be attracted to his wife after 20 years. Starts off how she's been loyal and a great mother to their son, but she's gained a little weight, and he's not into that. Comments were sympathetic to this man's plight, debating about being traditional and staying despite her transgressions and leaving her for someone hotter. And it just dawns on me how common this is, and what stuck out the most is how he describes his wife in terms of what she gives him. Acts of service in maintaining the home and caring for his child, and I assume him. And how she's letting him down by not looking the same as she did 20 years ago before she had his child. And there's zero info about who this woman was. Is she funny? Does she have a life outside the family? What are her dreams, her hopes, her wants? Did he marry her because of who she was or because she ticked off some requirements he had? I have this running dialogue in the back of my mind. It comes up when I see and hear discussions about trad wives where a woman's worth is not tied to who she is, but what she does and what she looks like. Slip up and she should be punished or discarded. It comes up when I hear about how quickly some men remarry when their wife dies, or when men leave when she becomes terminal or just got ugly from battling cancer or life-altering disease. It comes up all the time when I hear about a woman who is described only in terms of what she does for everyone else. A long time ago in my 20s, I was on a dating site, and I was talking to a guy who was about to graduate med school. He told me he was looking for a woman who would support him in his career, take care of his home, do all for him so he can do what he wanted. And I said funny because I was looking for a man who would support me in my career too. He didn't respond, but thinking back now, at least he was honest. Anyway, I'm just observing what's right in front of us all the time. I think about how my mom and her mom and my aunts nearly all gave up who they were in parts or entirely to care for others and lose that brief moment when they were wholly themselves as kids, if they ever had it at all. I'm starting to see those women send their kids off to be adults and just having nothing to fill them besides taking care of their man if they still have him. If he didn't run off to find someone hotter. I think about how in the media men are always protagonists and more than half the time women are the object to build up the man, or a villain that destroys the man. When they are actually full whole people, that's controversial, but many don't question why. And I think about how this push we have had for years in the US is about trying to tell women to go back to that trad wife content like 19 and counting, began in 08, now it seems like it's everywhere with multiple shows and tons of social media accounts. I don't think that's a coincidence. Anyways, I got no answers, just making an observation. Stories number 36. My sister, 33F, ghosted me, 29F, for 4 years and now she wants back in my life. Where do I go from here? For context, my sister and I used to be incredibly close. We were best friends, always talking, video chatting, or spending time together. Our husbands got along great, my 2 boys adored her, and we all had a wonderful family dynamic. My sister and I share the same dad but have different moms. She's my only sibling, though she has 6 half-siblings on her mom's side. Growing up, she lived with her mom and visited us every other weekend until she moved in with us full-time at 14, I was 10. Unfortunately, my sister and my mom had a terrible relationship, there was constant fighting, and my sister was miserable. To be fair, my mom wasn't just hard on her, she was difficult with everyone. I ended up moving out at 15 for the same reasons my sister moved out at 18, my mom's behavior was unbearable. After having my first son at 18, I worked on repairing my relationship with my mom. The closer my mom and I became, the more my sister seemed to resent her. My mom also tried using me as a bridge to reconnect with my sister, which made managing separate relationships with each of them very tricky. 3 years ago, my mom invited both of our families over for a game night. It was the first time in years we'd all been in the same room. Tension was high, but I didn't realize until later that it wasn't just my mom creating it, it was between my sister and me. My sister and her husband left after exchanging pleasantries, long before we even got to the games. After that night, my sister pulled away from me entirely. She stopped calling or hanging out and would only occasionally respond to texts. Over time, her responses stopped altogether. For a year, I tried to reach out, begging her to tell me what was wrong or what I could do to fix things. I reminded her that we were family and could work through anything, but I never got an answer. Eventually, I stopped trying. Every day during that time, my kids would ask if their aunt was coming over. They adored her, and her absence was a constant source of pain for all of us. Holidays and family gatherings felt empty without her. I grieved the loss of our relationship deeply, especially because I didn't know why it had ended. Now, 4 years later, my kids don't even remember her. They were so young when she was in our lives that it was easier for me to let them forget rather than let them feel abandoned too. Over time, I've come to terms with the loss. It feels almost like she died. I've accepted that she may never be a part of my life again. Then, out of nowhere, she texted me a few weeks ago saying we should get together soon. I was driving when I saw the message, and it shocked me so much I had to pull over. Instead of feeling excited or relieved like I thought I would, I felt overwhelmed and stressed. Now, I'm stuck. I don't know how to proceed or whether I should even let her back into my life. TLDR, my sister and I were extremely close, but she ghosted me 4 years ago with no explanation. Now, she suddenly wants to reconnect, and I don't know what to do. Stories number 37. Fight with my 29M girlfriend, 28F, over last name, reconsidering relationship. Been dating for 3 years, living together for 1. We've been serious and exclusive for 2 years, and last week we started discussing marriage. Couching it in terms of speaking hypothetically, things like that. For the most part, things seem great. We both want kids, we have compatible career goals, we want to do the same things in life, we have compatible religious views, etc. But last night, I asked my girlfriend if she's comfortable being Mrs., my last name, and she laughed and said I don't need to worry about that because she's never taking my name. I asked her if she was serious, and she said that changing her last name at all would jeopardize her career, and even if it wouldn't, she wouldn't take my particular last name even in hyphenated form. Then she added that she wouldn't let any kids of ours take my last name either. Now, I have what most people would consider to be a very silly last name, even offensive in certain company, as it prominently includes a very common nickname for a sex organ. I got bullied relentlessly for my last name growing up, and even now people tend to do double takes when they hear it. When I first met my girlfriend, she said she had thought my last name was me joking around. But it's my name, I'm my family's only child, and these days to me it's a funny joke to laugh about with the guys at work. And my longtime girlfriend told me that she wouldn't let any child of hers have my last name because they'd get teased and bullied over it. To me, it's just the latest in a long string of incidents since moving in together that makes me think Wendy doesn't respect me. I make a lot more money than she does, so when I see a cute dress or piece of jewelry, I like to buy it and surprise her with it. She liked it when we were just dating, but now she keeps telling me that it's not her style or she isn't comfortable with me spending so much money on her. She never wears it either. Her social media is filled with her in her work clothes or in jeans and tank tops. Wendy also used to be super flirty before we moved in together, sending me dirty emails and nude or almost nude photos on a regular basis and inviting me to do the same. She doesn't do that anymore, and the last time she put on fancy lingerie that wasn't me specifically asking for it was on my birthday a few months ago. I think Wendy doesn't get how important this is to me. I want her to be my wife, not just the woman I live with, and we've been kind of distant with each other since the argument. We only had sex once since then, and even that felt like she was just going through the motions because she knew I was horny. Is there a way I can get her to compromise with me on this? I really want my wife and kids to have my last name, not just be the woman I happen to be married to who happen to pop out kids who are related to me. Or should I sever now while I'm still young if she's not going to budge? TLDR, talking marriage with girlfriend refuses to take my last name and generally isn't taking me seriously. Not sure where to take the relationship from here. Been dating for 3 years, living together for 1. A few weeks ago, I made a thread about a fight I was having with my girlfriend. At the time, I didn't listen to the people calling me an asshole. Instead, I listened to the guys at work who said the cause of my fights and coldness with Wendy was that Wendy was probably cheating on me. Wendy's used my computer a couple of times to check her email, and saved her login info. I'd never been tempted to use it to look at her email, but last week I decided that the guys were probably right, and snooped on Wendy's email to see if she was cheating on me. This was a shitty thing of me to do, I know that. I found several long email conversations between Wendy and her friends and family. She complained about me, and said she was thinking about cheating, but wanted to stay with me until the time came to renew the lease on our apartment, at which point she'd leave. She was afraid I'd do something bad if she just broke up with me. To be honest, I almost shut down the computer then and there to sever with her on the spot. But then I kept reading. Wendy was telling her friends and family that she was legitimately afraid of me, that I was super controlling and she wasn't sure if I was being abusive by constantly buying her expensive things then acting like she owed me something in return. She said it was charming but a little overwhelming even when we were just dating, but that I changed and drastically escalated when she moved in with me. Wendy, being scared of me? Calling me controlling and maybe abusive? Something about that thought stuck with me when I went into work the next day, and listened to how the guys talk about their wives and girlfriends. And I realized something. They don't talk about women like they're people. Every time I've been to a dinner or other event with work, the women everyone brings are either the most inane, shallow real housewives I've ever met, or look like they want to kill everyone at the table followed by themselves. Then I realized that was how my dad treated my mom, too. Constantly bought her super expensive things, and she'd make dinner or put on super nice things for sex. Yeah, I found my mom's lingerie drawer when I was a teenager. My dad said he was just buying things to be nice, but it was more like a transaction. And the guys at work do the same thing. And I was doing the same thing. I felt sick to my stomach when I realized all of that. I guess it's guilt, or just not wanting to be like my dad. And realizing that the guys at work are assholes. I didn't want Wendy to be scared of me, but I guess I never really thought about how she saw what I was doing. And it's made me realize that I've been a fuck-up and an asshole to women in general, not just Wendy. I don't want one of those vacuous bimbo trophy wives some of the guys at work have, and I don't want to turn someone into that. Even Wendy asked me what's wrong when I started feeling sick every time I've seen her this week. I'm not going to salvage this relationship, I know that. I guess my question is, should I tell her what I've realized and why? Should I tell her I've realized what an asshole I've been but not tell her why? Or should I just let her leave when the lease comes up for expiration and leave it at that? I hate myself. I really do. But I have to do what's right for Wendy, and maybe look into some kind of counseling if there is such a thing for stuff like this. And I need different, better friends at work. TLDR, realized I've been a controlling, borderline abusive asshole to my girlfriend and want to let things end, but not sure how to go about it. Stories number 38, am I the asshole? For telling my parents they aren't really my parents. So my, 20m, parents weren't really present. My grandparents stayed with us and took care of me until I started daycare, but after a few incidents where the teacher was targeting me for no reason, they withdrew me. My parents said daycare seems too expensive, I was better off at home and refused to pay. My grandparents continued raising me, then I started school. They came over every morning and afternoon, basically whenever I was home. At that point, it felt like they should just move in with us, but my parents didn't want them to, since they'd have to pay for 2 more people living with us and they also didn't want them nagging all the time. I remember always asking my grandma why I never see my parents, and she'd try to change the topic. Well, I spoke to her recently, and after a lot of pressing and convincing, she admitted that my parents didn't want me or my brother, upon their own admission not long after we were born. And to top it off, as it turns out, my parents just stayed at work late every day so they wouldn't have to deal with me and my twin in general. They recently posted a picture of us, saying spending time with family is the best gift they've ever received. I never paid much attention, but it turns out, they've been posting mine and my brother's pictures for occasions like Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthdays, etc. I spent the weekend making cute stuff out of wood with my grandparents, so I posted a few pics of those and added a caption, saying it was great to finally have a free weekend to spend with my parents. They called me up asking me what I meant by that post, and I told them I meant exactly what I typed out. I see my grandparents as my real parents, they're the ones who've been there for me. My grandma made our lunch and got us ready every day. My grandpa dropped us everywhere, school, competitions, name it. They were the ones who listened to all my problems, gave me advice, consoled me, fought for me. They guided us through life, not my parents. They guided us through life, not my parents who gave birth to me and left it at that. My mother started crying, and my father said it's unfair of me to punish them for making their career a priority and taking breaks, since balancing career and parenting is stressful. I told them they didn't balance anything, they just pawned us off to our grandparents. They're now blowing our phones up and demanding apologies. So, am I the asshole? Stories number 39, am I the asshole? For being disgusted and just saying okay when my fiancé broke up with me. To start, Alex moved out pretty quickly after the breakup. He has been staying with a friend, and we sorted out everything like mail, subscriptions, and the lease. I'm also in the process of adopting a cat. Her name is Luna, but I have been thinking about changing it since my family already has 2 pets named Luna, Amun, and Kamar. She is still at her foster home for now, but I have visited her a few times, and I already adore her. She is a scrappy little tabby who follows her foster mom around like a shadow, and I can't wait for her to move in during the first week of December. I've already gotten her bowls, toys, and a bed by the window ready. Now on to what happened. Last week, I was out showing someone around the city. He is the son of my parents' friends who recently moved here for work. My parents asked me to help him get familiar with the area, so I agreed. It was nothing special, just walking around, grabbing coffee, and pointing out useful spots in the city. Apparently, Alex saw us. I didn't even realize he was there, but later that night, I started getting texts from an unknown number. I guess he got a new number since I blocked his old one. The texts were just weird. He accused me of flaunting my new relationship in public, said I must have been seeing this guy before we broke up, and told me that everything he suspected about me was true. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to entertain his paranoia. The messages kept coming though. They went from angry to desperate, with him saying things like, "At least admit you were lying to me," and, "Was anything about us even real?" It was exhausting and honestly a little scary to see how quickly he spiraled. For the record, this guy isn't my boyfriend. He's not even someone I'm interested in. He's just the son of family friends who needed help settling into the city. The whole thing was completely innocent, but Alex has twisted it into some kind of betrayal in his head. What gets me is how little Alex seems to know me. I'm not the type of person to jump into a relationship so soon after everything that happened. Even if I were, it wouldn't be any of his business. We are done. I've made that clear. After I didn't respond to his texts, Alex started calling. I didn't pick up, but the voicemails were a mix of angry rants and desperate pleas. I ended up blocking his new number too. It feels ridiculous that I have to keep doing this, but I guess this is where we are now. Then this weekend, I went out to a bar with my friends. A few hours in, guess who walked in? Alex. I don't know if it was a coincidence or if he followed me there, but as soon as he spotted me, he came straight over. He was clearly upset, asking to talk, and I told him no. My friend stepped in, and thankfully, he left without causing a scene, but it ruined my night. It felt like I couldn't escape him, no matter where I went or what I did. When I got home later that night, I was completely drained. I had just started to relax when I heard a knock on my door. It was Alex, standing there in tears. He started crying, saying he missed me, that he didn't understand why I was doing this to him, and that he didn't know how to move on. It was like all the anger from earlier had been replaced with this desperate sadness. I didn't let him in. I told him he needed to leave, and if he didn't, I would call someone to make him leave. He begged me to listen, but I just closed the door. I spent the rest of the night feeling shaken and honestly a little scared. I don't know what he's going through. I wrote his best friend about the situation but the plea of talking to him. He said he would. I'm seriously considering getting a new phone number and possibly even talking to someone about how to handle this legally if it keeps happening. It feels unfair that I have to go to these lengths just to have some peace, but I don't see another option. Stories number 40. Am I the asshole? For not allowing my foster parents to put parental controls on the iPhone my biological parents bought me. I, 15M, have lived with my current foster parents since I was 9 years old but I've been in foster care since I was 6. I will call my foster parents Henry and Baron. I got a new phone as an early Christmas present from my biological dad. It is an iPhone 16 Pro Max, which is the phone I wanted, so I am very happy about it. My previous phone was an iPhone 11 and it was bought by Henry and Aaron. On my old phone Henry and Aaron had set up loads of parental controls on it, so I couldn't download any apps without them approving it. I couldn't turn off share my location, I couldn't change my passcode. It would lock everything except their contacts at 8 p.m. every night until after school, and they had a time limit on YouTube so I could only watch it for 30 minutes. Within the time where my phone was unlocked anyway, and I could only go on websites that they approved off, like there was a list that I could go on and I couldn't go on anything that they didn't manually add to that list. These all really annoyed me, but whenever I asked for them to be turned off they told me that they bought the phone and so these were the rules. Now I was given my new phone by my dad on Monday and I haven't used it yet because they're telling me that I have to let them put the same restrictions on the new phone as they did my old phone. I said no because that isn't fair. I should be allowed to use my phone as my dad says because he paid for it. I said to them that my dad paid for the phone so it was his choice and that he doesn't want me to have those restrictions on. But now they've changed and said it doesn't matter who bought the phone, even though that was their whole point before. Now they're saying that because I am living with them I have to follow their rules, and the rule for having a phone in this house is that they put restrictions on it. I don't think that is fair at all considering they didn't buy the phone. I don't see how they can do this. Before I got home from school on Monday they took the phone out of the box my dad sent it in and set up all the restrictions, and now I'm trying to figure out a way to take them off. I am thinking about complaining to my social worker because it is not fair that they put these restrictions on my phone even though they didn't pay for it. I wrote this post on Thursday, I just didn't get chance to post it until now. So Henry and Erin actually took me to McDonald's after school today, the day I am writing this, and they said to me they could tell I was upset with them and asked me to explain my feelings to them. I explained how I felt really frustrated that they told me the parental controls were because they bought the phone and then when my dad bought me a phone they still put the same restrictions. They said they were sorry they gave that impression and that they could have explained it better. They asked which were the restrictions I had the biggest issue with. I said how I can't text/call anyone unless they approve it, how the phone locks at 8 p.m. I can't use it, and that I only have a 30 minutes on YouTube or TikTok and that I can't have apps like Snapchat, Discord, Instagram etc. They said okay, they understood why I was upset and frustrated and said they will discuss with my social worker how they can lighten up the rules while still ensuring I am safe. They said they don't want me having a long time on the phone because they don't think it's good for me, but they said in the meantime they will increase the limit to 1 hour for YT/TT and that they will increase the bedtime until 9:30 p.m. I think this is a fair compromise. I said they seemed upset that I got a new phone in general, and they said they weren't upset at me but were upset at the situation. I asked what they meant, and they said that it was something between them and my dad and I didn't need to worry about it. But I asked them to carry on and I had to kind of persuade them to tell me. They had actually bought an iPhone 16 Pro Max for Christmas for me and had told my parents and my social worker that they had bought it and were going to give it me for Christmas. But my dad bought one before they could give me theirs and they felt upset that their big present had been ruined. But they said that wasn't my fault and they didn't mean to make me feel like they didn't care about what my dad got me. Honestly, that made me feel upset. I asked my dad why he bought me the phone if he knew that Henry and Erin already did. He said he didn't want Henry and Erin to have to give me something so expensive. But I said they had already bought it for me and he knew that. I said that was unfair and that he shouldn't have done that. He called me ungrateful. I asked him how he would have felt if it was the other way around and he left me on red, uneasy face. I actually feel really upset for Henry and Erin that my dad did that to them and I actually feel guilty even though I didn't know they had already bought me one. I'm not sure what to do now. I could give my phone back to my dad and have Henry and Erin's but if that's the right thing to do. Henry and Erin said that it wasn't my fault and that it doesn't mean my dad is a bad person, which I know. But I do feel really angry at him. Update. I'm writing this from the school IT suite. I just wanted to share something. Firstly, it makes me really uncomfortable that people were sending me hate messages and sending death wishes to my dad. People were messaging me saying they wish he'd live himself or that Henry and Erin should throw me out for being ungrateful to them. Sorry, but you people need help. It's not normal to treat people like that and it's not normal to say things like that to people. People were accusing me of being blindly loyal to my dad, which simply isn't true. I've said so many times that my dad isn't a great person, that doesn't mean he's a sociopath or that he deserves to die. It's so crazy that I get downvoted for saying, bruh calm down a bit please, when I respond to people like that. Anyways, my dad is still ignoring me which is making me really upset. I've sent him some messages just basically saying, how's you? How was work? And stuff and he's left me on read every day since last Thursday. So I've decided that I'm just going to leave it and if he wants to talk with me again he can come to me. Henry and Erin said they felt really bad because they said they shouldn't have told me about what my dad did. But I said I'm glad they did tell me. I decided that I would keep the phone my dad gave me and we'd return the phone that Henry and Erin bought me, and we're going to use the money for a trip to Drayton Manor where we have the fast passes so we don't need to wait in any lines and we're going to take my little brother also. He doesn't live with me and Henry and Erin, which is going to be so much fun. I'm really excited for that. I just want to clarify some things. I am long-term matched with Henry and Erin which means I am never going to be reunified with my biological parents, even if they became super parents with no flaws. I'm matched with Henry and Erin so I'm staying with them until I'm 18. This has been the case since I was 11-ish. There have never been plans for me to move back in with my parents because to be honest neither of them want me to. Sounds harsh but it is true, and I like living with Henry and Erin. Also both my mom and my dad have children with other people now. We're still a family though. I just have a very big, very weird family. Stories number 41. Am I the asshole? For yelling at my boyfriend's work wife when she broke my instrument and called me a slur. Alrighty, this is mainly more to validate my point than to get advice. I kinda just need somewhere to rant. I'm a transgender male and I'm 17. I am a classical musician and play a lot of instruments. My main instruments being the piano, the cello, and the drums. I've started university early and have jumped straight into a music program now that school is over. I'm studying classical performance and composition, and I even teach lessons here and there for some extra cash. Last week, my boyfriend, 18, told me he had a party at work for a few people that were leaving. He asked me to be his +1 and that I needed to dress nice. I was happy to go and put on something that every musician is familiar with. My concert blacks. For anyone who isn't familiar, concert blacks consist of black dress pants, black dress shirt, black leather belt, black dress shoes, and black socks. I basically wore that but swapped the pants for black ripped skinny jeans and the shoes for some Connies because it was smart casual. I also paired it with some cute accessories like some silver earrings and some cuff bracelets. This is relevant, I promise. When we got to the party, my boyfriend was excited to introduce me to his coworkers, and to be honest, I was excited to meet them. Rightfully so, because everyone was so sweet and friendly and full of great conversation. I had an amazing first hour. That was up until my boyfriend introduced me to this woman we'll call Emma. She's probably in her mid-20s and a classic pick-me girl. Now I immediately got bad vibes from Emma because as soon as she saw my boyfriend, she slung her arm over his shoulder and gave him a kiss on the cheek, leaving a little red mark on his face. Now I don't actually like being the jealous type, but holy crap. Something in me twisted, but I just smiled and held my hand out as a greeting. She acted like she only just noticed me and was like, "Oh, I didn't know, insert boyfriend name, brought a side thing. I'm the work wife, you see. He probably tells me more than he tells you, excuse me bitch. Side thing. We've been dating for 2 years, anyways." We ended up in conversation with a few other people and their girlfriends. It didn't take long for Emma to repel them and she was left with just the boys, probably what she wanted. Then she rounded on me. She was grilling me, asking me literally everything about me, and when it got out that I played the cello, my boyfriend wouldn't STFU about it. Bless his little cotton socks, the bastard wouldn't let up and convinced everyone to peer pressure me into getting my cello from his car and playing it. So I did. I played something quick because I didn't want to play too long and risk it getting broken in the crowded space. As I went to put it away, Emma just walks up to me and grabs it. I don't let go and try pulling it away, asking her to give it back. She giggles and says, just let me try it, I'll probably be terrible at it, OMG, do you guys dare me to play it?" asking the men in the room. I glared and told her sternly no and that it's not a toy. She leans in and whispers, "Sure it is, F-slur, get your cheap Kmart clothes out of here." Fucking pardon. I stand there shook and she rips the cello out of my hand. But as she takes it, loses her grip and drops it on the edge of a table. I run to it and start almost crying because there's a massive hole in the back of my cello. I put it and the parts back into its case and start literally ugly cry screaming at this woman. She starts crying and saying she didn't mean it. I took my boyfriend and left. I got his phone and blocked her on it, he didn't have an issue. I got her email and sent her the cost of the repairs 2 days later. Am I the asshole? 'Cause I don't think I am, she thinks I am, and a few guys at my boyfriend's work think I am. This is my income though, she had no right to touch it. I mean, yes, I took my instrument out at a party, but I was under the impression that the work gathering would be full of professionals with common sense. Apparently not. Also, this is the rushed version of it, hope it makes sense. She was being unbearable the whole time. Stories number 42. One of many reasons I love my fiancé. My fiancé, the kid, and I went bowling last night. We had a great time. The reason I'm posting this is because as we were leaving, we passed one of those modern-day jukebox things that play music over the whole bowling alley. Well, she walked up to it and she pointed out it had a ton of credits already on it. I think nothing of it and continue gathering my things to leave. A few seconds later she's like, "We gotta leave, now." Confused as I was, I follow her, fast walking to the exit. As we reach the doors I hear it, the song she picked. My wonderful fiancé had just rick-rolled the entire bowling alley. I busted out laughing and fell even more in love with her. Edit, yes, it was Never Gonna Give You Up. Stories number 43. I am not happy with my marriage. I, 32, have got married for almost 8 years but never been happy with it. My husband, 40, is the biggest disappointment of my life. I have been always tried my best to upgrade my knowledge, to get more achievements for my career, to earn more money for my family, to do better things for our son. My husband, on the contrary, is likely not to have any life target. He has been living like a tree, there's no plan, no target, no discipline. He can't even earn enough money for his own living. Sometimes I feel like I can move faster without him, that he is the reason making my life worse. So far, I just focus on my son and my work, avoid mentioning my husband while talking to others. I don't know what should I do for my marriage. I'm not ready for divorce yet. I just feel like he's not good enough for me to stay but not bad enough for me to leave. I'm getting stuck. Is there anyone with the same problem? What did you do to overcome? Stories number 44. Am I overreacting? Husband suspects me of cheating. No evidence and he still won't believe me. Married to my one and only husband and sexual partner for decades. He accused me of cheating with a coworker that is so young that I could actually be the mother of. Husband put a listening device in my car, made me quit my job. I took 3 polygraph tests and passed every one with flying colors. He had me followed with no infractions on my part. Had the audio recordings analyzed and there is no evidence of anyone in my car but me. He went through my phone every day and no inappropriate messages were ever sent or received. Why the hell won't he believe me? Edit/update per request, we are recently divorced. He still says subtle things indicating that he can move forward if he gets a confession from me. I brought up him getting help from a therapist and he raged and said that he did nothing wrong. This is what men do, it's their right. He plays the martyr and the pitiful victim to his friends, mind you. These are friends that we do not have mutually in common, new friends. We, my kids and I, are trying to wade through the crap he left. I put this out here to see why the hell would he do all of this and blow up the marriage. Y'all have been very helpful. And confirming suspicions that we all have had. Stories number 45. Now my brother tells me he has no money, nowhere to go. We are in Ohio. My father just passed away at 88. He had severe dementia for 20 years. My mother is 87. I spent the last 5+ years helping my mother put my father in a nursing home. We then realized Dad had a bunch of little investments and a mile of confusing paperwork. We hired an attorney and it literally took over a year to get to the bottom of these accounts, liquidate them, etc. We had to spend down Dad's portion, putting a new roof on their home, buying funerals, etc. Now, my father is gone and my mother has her home that is paid off and worth about $170,000. She has $140,000 in the bank and with her age, I felt she was comfortable. I am the executor, POA, and we have a joint account. Meanwhile, my brother, who is 63, I'm 60, has been living in my mother's house for the past 10 years. I got him a job where I worked after he had nowhere to go and no job. We had not heard from him for 20 years before that, previous drug abuse. He has done nothing for 10 years. Nothing. I took Mom to see Dad all the time. I take her to whatever she needs and I set up her bills to come directly from the joint account. My mother has always babied my brother and she assumed this whole time that he was saving money since she charged him nothing. He never went to see my dad, not even when he was dying. He hasn't paid rent or not one dime since he moved in. I did not say much before this, not that it would have helped, about my brother. I was glad he was at least in the house and could alert me if something is wrong. I pay her phone and medical alert. We had Mom's will redone while Dad was in the nursing home and we were doing his paperwork. Her will is very cut and dry, it is 50-50 between my brother and myself. My mother has suddenly become very frail and can't be by herself. Now my brother tells me that he has no money. We both got laid off last year. I went on disability and he has been working part-time, under the table, for a friend. He has just realized that if she goes in a nursing home, he may lose a place to live if her home goes for her care. He now wants to tell everyone that he has been her caretaker for the last 10 years and because of that, he should be granted the home. I am a bit stunned. I had no idea he had no money. He wants to get an attorney and put the house in his name. Haha. I can't go back to the attorney we used for Dad because she was a nightmare. She actually gave us back our $5,000 retainer because things went so terrible on her end. I am Mom's POA so my brother can't do anything right away. He has made an appointment with an attorney for Tuesday and invited me to go with him. And, of course, now he is my best friend. Should I get my own attorney? Mom is mostly still sane in mind but she doesn't want him to be out on the street and I don't know what she would say if asked if he was her caretaker all this time. She may say yes so he isn't homeless. Can he be awarded the house because he has lived there so long? Even if she goes into long-term care. Since Mom and I have a joint account, should I move some of the money, just in case? I have no problem with her money and house going for her care. After all, it is her money. But, I also have done all the work for 30 years. She had never paid a bill when my father started getting dementia. I have my own home and because of that, they think I have what I need. But, my house comes with a mortgage and I am disabled. Should I be penalized because he is stupid? What is the best thing to do? Stories number 46. Would I be the asshole here if I got an abortion without telling my husband? I can't do this again. My baby is only 16 months and the birth control pills my DR gave me failed. My period's 5 days late and I'm panicking. We have no space for another, we live with my dad again and have 3 kids in one room and we sleep on the floor in the spare room with the baby in her bed. I'm on a wait list for a hysterectomy that will change everything for me. I won't have to schedule my life around my bleeding anymore. But I know if I tell my husband I'm pregnant and want an abortion he'll flip his shit. Would I be the asshole here if I went and got the pills? And before anyone asks, we live with my dad because I got fired for telling my boss about my hysterectomy and how I'll need 12 weeks to recover. Per my DR's recommendation, and we couldn't afford our place anymore. Yay, California. Update, bought clear blue tests, took the digital one after dinner. Got an error code. Now, I have to go get the first response ones tomorrow morning cause I don't trust these anymore. Stories number 47. Am I the asshole? For going behind my wife's back and telling her pregnant sister that she's being cheated on. I have been married to my wife for 3 years, I am 27 and she's 26, my SIL is 30 and my POS bill is 31, I always had a close relationship with my SIL. We are friends, also has a decent connection between my bill, not that close but we often talk and get along. My wife and her sister didn't get along as much as you would expect from siblings, it wasn't just normal siblings rivalry but constant fights and arguments. Anyway, 3 weeks ago when I was having dinner with my friends, I saw my bill with another woman, they were just eating, I didn't think much of it. I wanted to go and greet him but I kept talking to my friends, after a while I saw that he gave a light kiss to this woman. I was so shocked. I decided to not confront him and when I got back to my home I told my wife everything. I told her that her sister is getting cheated on and we need to tell her. My wife said we should talk to my bill instead of telling her sister and we should not break their marriage because her sister is pregnant. I was like WTF. So what is she's pregnant? Her husband is a cheat. I tried to convince my wife multiple times that we should tell her sister the truth. I told her that I know you guys don't get along but she's still your sister and this isn't right but she asked me to stay out of it. I tried my best to convince my wife but she either ignored me or said we shouldn't break their marriage. I had enough of her and yesterday I told her that I am coming clean to my SIL, she and I have a great bond and I can't and won't betray her. My wife said if I tell her the truth she will not talk to me. I replied I won't talk to you either if you don't want to do what's right. Today I told my SIL the truth, I went to her place and told her everything, she was doubtful and she asked me to leave. After a few hours my SIL called me and she was crying and said what I said was the truth and she shouldn't have doubted me and kicked me. She said she's leaving. I asked her where would you go? Do you have money? She said she does but not that much. I wired her a bit and said she should call me if she needs help and she thanked me and said she will only use the money I sent if it's necessary otherwise she will return. My bill called my wife and well my wife lashed onto me and said I ruined her family and her sister's life. I said I thought the moment we got married your family is mine and my family is yours. Anyway YTF are you defending that POS so much? What about your sister? She didn't reply to me and she's not talking to me either. I tried to talk to her and convince her that it was the right thing to do. But she wouldn't talk to me so I said fine stay angry and if you want to divorce me then go ahead. I think I have nuked my marriage. Do not know if what I did was truly right. Update 1. It's been a few days since I told my wife's sister that her husband is a cheat. Just to clarify to all the weirdos, no I am not in love with my SIL. I don't have any inappropriate relation/feelings for her, I respect her and she's family. In any case yesterday I asked my wife why she is pissed and wanted me to not reveal the truth to her sister. I know you guys hate each other but you guys are siblings. My wife said it's not our place to interfere. I asked are you okay with her sister being cheated on? She said she isn't but it will and has ruined their marriage because of my stupidity. She's pregnant and the child needs his father and so does the wife. I was so shocked when she said this, like WTF. I asked her if I were to cheat on you would you forgive me? She said yes. I also asked her if she ever cheats on me would she hide it from me, she also said yes to that. I was so shocked I asked her if she knows what she's saying, she said, yes and she's confident. Just because you had sex with someone else doesn't mean everyone else has to suffer and break the family. I had no words to say. I told her that I also sent my SIL money. She started screaming at me and said I shouldn't have helped her despite knowing she doesn't like her sister. I said if that's what she thinks then it's better if we just divorce. She got angry and screamed fine and started packing her bag. I tried my best to stop her from leaving. I told her that I love her and I just did what I felt right. Nobody has to suffer betrayal like this. She said it wasn't the right time. I asked her so when should we tell her the truth? After she gives birth? Because it will worsen her PPD or years after she gives birth, she will just blame us. She said we should have just kept quiet and left it alone. I tried so hard to stop her but she didn't listen to me and left. I tried to contact her and her parents, her friends but they don't know where she is and instead started interrogating me and saying I am her husband and I should have taken care of her and I should know where she is. I even visited my bill to confirm my suspicions but I didn't see her car or her belongings anywhere. I hate that I am being blamed for just revealing the truth and my wife leaving me right away without a second thought. I was so damn pissed so today I called my SIL and told her that she can stay at my place cause I am going to my parents and my wife left and nobody knows where she is. She told me she will try talking to her parents but after a while she called me and said that their parents don't know where she is. I told her to think about herself and come over and stay here instead of blowing up her money. Now I am at my parents' and my sil is in our home. Maybe I was being petty, but I hate that my wife gave up on me and left without a second thought. I don't know whether she's cheating or cheated, or she would truly cheat on me and her own blood sister with a family relative, over feuds. One thing is for sure though, I cannot trust my wife anymore. She hurt me. Update 2. Many people ask me for an update, and I also do need some outsider's perspective over my situation, so here it goes. But before, I just want to clarify/ask to people who kept calling me names for telling my sil the truth, why you guys kept telling me to mind my own business. She's family, and if families don't look out for each other and help, then who else will? Strangers. And it's not just some harmless/small lie for my bill, it's life-changing. My sil isn't just my sil. She's my friend. If I didn't tell her the truth now, then my POS bill would have just kept cheating and I would lose a friend if I delayed. Anyway, coming back to update, my sil only stayed at my place for 2 days. After then she called me and said she can't trouble me anymore and she's going to live in hotel. I tried to convince her to not blow up her money unnecessarily, but she didn't listen and left anyway. And yes, I am divorcing my wife. After a week of NC, she called me and said she wants to reconcile. She said she was angry that I didn't listen to her and went behind her back. She said she didn't want to break her sister's family, so she wanted to hide it and convince my bill to not cheat, but I fucked it all up and she's coming back. I just asked her to come back cause I wanted to talk to her, and it's not something you discuss over calls. Once my wife arrived and started to explain herself, I told her I am filling. She was pretty shocked. She said we can make it work. I told her we can't. I don't trust you after everything you said, and you just left me with no contact and you show up suddenly while I was worried all day about where my wife is or is she safe, etc. I can't make it work. She tried convincing me to not divorce, but I had already made my intentions clear. I told her that her sister stayed at our place for 2 days and she got angry and said, fine, let's divorce, and left. I told my sil that I am getting a divorce. She wasn't happy about it, but she didn't try to convince me in or out of it. I told her that she can stay with me instead of hotel. She said it's inappropriate. I just said either you blow up your money and struggle or she can accept my help. So my sil and I have been living together for past couple of days and we discussed about our spouses and their behavior. We both got pretty angry about this all. My sil got even more angry than I was and she ended up calling my wife and called her names, and she told me she's hellbent onto ruining my bill. She is divorcing him and will go nuclear on him and ask for as much money as alimony and child support. She wants to drain him. My wife and I didn't talk to each other after she left, and we both know that we are divorcing. My sil, though angry, she calmed down cause it's unhealthy for her and her baby, and she started focusing on career and read stories about single moms. She's preparing herself. So yeah, that's all, and weirdos stay away. Neither my sil nor I have any feelings between each other. I am just helping her and she wasn't feeling good about it, that's why she was hesitating so much. Call me a moral police, but I know I did the right thing not just for my sil but for me as well. I now know what kind of woman my wife is. Stories number 48. Husband, 36M, said something that broke my 39F heart. How do I process it? This is rather long, but bear with me, please. Husband, 36M, and I, 39F, have been together for 12 years, 8 married, and have a 2 years old. In the beginning, we talked about being a child-free couple, and that was fine with me. When COVID hit, I took a look at my life and saw that we both have stable jobs, didn't have any grand plans, to buy a house, to chance professions, and thought that a kid wouldn't really interfere with whatever life plans we had or would have. We talked at length about trying to conceive, and how a kid would give us a different experience out of our lives that seemed already so settled. In the next 6 months, I got pregnant 3 times. The first was an embryonic pregnancy. The egg gets fertilized and implants into the uterus but doesn't develop into an embryo. The next month, I got pregnant, but had a miscarriage at 10 weeks. It was easily the worst days of my life. Then, the very next month, I got pregnant again, and 39 weeks later, we had our baby boy. The first 3 months were a whirlwind of sleep deprivation, chaotic days with me crying, the baby not nursing properly. He was admitted with jaundice for lack of feeding, had a tongue tie, and torticollis. It was one of the most challenging periods of our life. We spent a lot on medical bills. We didn't have any support from family nor friends. We have a cleaning lady that comes in once a week. Our baby boy was one of those that would fuss 1h to get down to nap just to rest for 30 to 40 minutes, and would only sleep while nursed. I was fully on baby duty and exhausted. Husband was the one doing groceries and most of the meals, doing dishes, laundry. I went back to work at 7 months. We decided to hire a nanny. My husband rose to the part and took care of the baby by himself on weekends and holidays. I am essential worker, work on the subway, and have a work schedule of 3x2, work 3 days in and off for 2, sometimes the 3 days in are Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I know this is hard on him because he's all by himself with our son until the nanny arrives or for most of the weekend. I work a 10-hour shift, from 5 a.m. util 3 p.m. to ease things for him. When I arrive, I take the shortest shower you've ever seen, don't wash my hair on weekends, and take the baby duty util bedtime, when he comes in and reads a book. Fast forward 2 years, and things have improved a ton. A 2 years old is such a different kid. He's so smart, asks for whatever snacks he wants, has his favorite books, is learning how to ride a balance bike, and even states when is tired and needs a rest, takes 2h30 long naps. Yay. I feel that motherhood changed me a lot, for the better. I'm in awe of how he's developing, how much his vocabulary is improving by the day, how smart and fun/funny he is. He has the sweetest voice, gives the warmest of hugs, has the best laughter. I'm so in love, so infatuated by this tiny human that I made. So the fairy of motherly amnesia knocked on my door and I started talking about having a second baby. When said this, his first response was, I still don't know if I want our first one, can't imagine a second. His wording was so weird to me. He's the best of dads. Not only he pulls his weight around the house, he is also so caring, and fun with our son. I appreciate him so much. I always say what a good husband and father he is. As the days went by, I tried talking about the topic of a second child with different approaches, asking what he thinks having a girl would be different than a boy, if he likes the names Andre and Lavinia, if we would get pregnant easily again. Well, the other day, I was playing with our son in the living room, just soaking up how amazing he is, and said something like, how incredible is he? When I think about living a whole life without getting to know him, I realize now how much I would miss of having this opportunity, living these moments, and wouldn't even know it. Because there's no way you can actually know what this is like. I wouldn't have lived a sad life or felt anything lacking. But this is a better life. He, then, said something in the lines of, I miss my old life. I miss waking up naturally, baby wakes up 6 a.m. tops. I miss having me time, miss being alone in the house and watching a 3-hour-long documentary, miss not spending so much money, not having to go grocery shopping all the time, and not being so tired every day. I said that I missed some of it too, but understood that all these changes were transitory, that things have improved so much in 2 years, and he's growing up so fast, and in no time we would have that life back. That in the grand scheme, we would be more parents of an adult than parents of a toddler/child. That in a few years, we would objectively have the same life of his brother and Sil, who don't want kids. He said that just because it would look like the same life, doesn't mean I would feel the same. Yes, in 20 years, we'll be driving the same route, but took different paths to get there, and for sure his brother's path had way less stress, less worries, with more liberty and money. Once you're a parent, there's no looking back, you are forced to live a very different life. I love our son, he's smart and very cute, but I would take it back. I think my brother's life will be smoother, with a ton of sleep, freedom and overall happier. I just stood there processing his words. I love our life. I mistakenly thought that, because we are a couple, we were living and feeling the same things. I know I am seeing life with pink glasses, that maybe he didn't think all of it so endearing, but I never thought that our views were drastically different. Later that day, I apologized for trying to push the subject of a second baby. Said that I hadn't realized that he viewed things this way, and understood now that for him another kid was a hard no, and wouldn't bring up the topic again. He said, thank you. I don't know if I should bring this conversation up and understand better what he said. I see him laughing and complimenting our kid and question whether it is genuine or not. I believe actions are louder than words. He's being his typical self, very loving, always kissing us, cooking our favorite dishes, making plans to travel to a farm hotel so our son can meet some animals, but his words shook me. Stories number 49. Am I the asshole? For refusing to change my daughter's name. My sister and I were raised by our stepmother and father. Our stepmother was very close to us and more of a mother than our actual mother has ever been. She passed away about 5 years ago after losing her battle to cancer. Her name was Leanne and it was very important for me to honor her by naming my child after her. We selected the name Leanna in order to honor Leanne while being somewhat different and more modern. My sister had the same idea with wanting to honor Leanne and named her 2-year-old Lee. We told her that we chose the name Leanna for the child we are expecting. Sister is very upset because she said that it clashes with her baby name choices. My sister is not currently pregnant but wanted to name her future daughter Anne or Anna as another way to honor Leanne. She thinks it would be stupid for her kids to be named Lee and Anna with a cousin named Leanna. I agree that that would be confusing as we have a pretty close family and the kids would be seeing each other a lot. However, we had no clue that she wanted to do another honor name for a future kid. Going into this we knew that Lee and Leanna are pretty similar names but I thought they were different enough that it wouldn't be too weird or confusing. I do feel bad because she already had a baby name picked out for her future daughter and we would somewhat be making it not able to be used. However, we were both close to Leanne and I don't think she should be the only one that gets to use an honor name. At the end of the day, she can still name any future kids whatever she wants. And I have the same right. After thinking long and hard about it, we told her that we were still gonna use the name. We want to honor Leanne and no other names considered feel right for this baby. Sister has been making passive-aggressive comments since then. For example, we were out shopping with her and Lee picks out some kind of stuffed animal. Lee dropped at the Walmart parking lot on the way back to the car. My sister quickly picks it up and hands it to him saying careful buddy, she might want to steal that too. I'm pretty sure she was trying to imply that we stole a version of his name or something but the whole interaction was pretty weird in my opinion. Edit. Her middle name is Karen for people asking in the comments. I don't want to use it for obvious reasons and neither does my sister. Edit 2. This is also really the only name me and my so both can agree on as we have very different naming styles. I prefer more classic names like Rachel or Paula or Maxine. He likes more trendy names like Moon or Adrian. Edit 3. I don't plan on using any more honor names for Leanne in the future. We have Naomi and Stephen, honor name from the father's side, picked out for any future children. I don't like any girl versions of Stephen either. So, no I'm not gonna name her Stephanie or whatever. This child is not Naomi though because it feels very wrong. We've tried referring to her as Naomi and it just isn't her name if that makes sense. Edit 4. If sister had a child named Stephen or Naomi I would not care. I don't own a name and she is free to name her future child whatever she wants. Edit 5. Her name is gonna be Karina y'all. Karina Lake. Lake may sound like a weird middle name but it's for Leanne Karen and her last name that started with E. Leanna is off the name list for good. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister and nephew over a name. Edit 6. I can't find a comment back but someone was recommending names and said Bertha. I actually love it because it's very classic but I feel like a child would get bullied with that name. Stories number 50. Happy birthday dear Hannah, happy birthday to you. Voices singing rang out, before the clapping began, indicating the end of the song. I smiled, looking across the old, rectangle table at my best friend of many years, surrounded by her close family. Staring down at her tall cake, chocolate with cream cheese icing, topped with shaved chocolate and strawberry jam. She was practically glowing with excitement. I still think it's an odd combination for a birthday cake, but her mother, Ms. Smith, told me when we were picking it up from the bakery that it was her favorite. I suppose the baker was a friend of hers. Out of nowhere, her face was shoved into it. Her brother, phone in one hand, other resting on the back of his sister's head, was smirking. He ruffled her now slight cake-smudged hair, starting to walk off. Jacob. His mother yelled to him, yet was still the corners of her lips tipped up into a small grin. Oh yeah, happy 18th, DD dumbass. He stuttered out in a teasing tone, glancing back at Hannah. I chuckled, as did some of their other relatives. I should have known he'd do something like that. Their dad, Mr. Dalhousie came out of the kitchen with a tray of cupcakes, decorated pink and blue with small, heart-shaped chocolates on top. Okay. I know not everyone can eat the cake and, he started, before seeing Hannah's head smushing it. Alright, restart. I know not everyone will want to have food that's been squished, so I made cupcakes earlier. Gluten-free. He added the last bit, peering at their Aunt Tricia, whose eyebrow raised a bit under her purple glasses, a look of approval plastered on her face. She was the only gluten-free person there. Hands grabbed for the food he placed at the wooden table, and people began eating. So Jamie, got into Yale yet? The burly man sitting next to me asks, crumbs stuck in his shortish, graying beard. Their Uncle Rodney. I have to fill out the application, but I am still applying. I respond, taking another bite of my own food, resting on a little paper plate with a party print on it. Good on you kid. It's a nice school. He spoke again. I'm bad at small talk, but I've found that he never holds it for long anyway. Hannah. You can get your face out of the cake now. Mr. Dalhousie's girlfriend, Cora, told her. Sat on the other side of Hannah, she pushed a dark brown lock of hair out of her face. Hanny, mon up, goose. You don't get to fall asleep just yet. Ms. Smith mentioned to her, shaking her should ever so gently. Cora laughed softly. Despite being her ex-husband's girlfriend, Cora and Ms. Smith seemed to have a decent enough relationship. I heard my phone ding, and took it out of my jeans pocket. I hid it under the table, not wanting to seem disrespectful, and unlocked it. Just a text from Mum. She asked when I was coming home. I snickered, she sent the same message less than 20 minutes ago. Before I type out my response, I hear a scream. Not happy. Not surprised. A terrified, blood-curdling scream. I look up, and see the faces of the others around me do the same. I realized it was from their youngest daughter, Donna, staring at her tiny hand, which was drenched in blood. My mouth contorts into a frown as I shift my gaze farther up in the seat in front of her. Hannah's head fell tilted to the side. Down the edges of the beautiful, smashed cake, red gushed, coming from her mouth and right eye. Snapped, wooden cake rods stuck out of them. Stories number 51. I'm the kid of one of those traveling RV families online and I hate them for it every day. My parents decided when I was only around 7 years old, far too young to get an opinion on anything, to pack us up and move into an RV to travel around the US. My dad works online and my mom makes content online. She's not huge by any means but big enough that we get recognized sometimes and big enough that I've had a camera shoved in my face for as long as I can remember. For my privacy's sake I won't say anything else on that, and I'm using a throwaway account because I've gotten enough attention already and I'm sick of it. I sleep in a tiny bunk bed that I outgrew years ago, and the other bunk is the only space I have to put anything I own. I don't even have a room, just a curtain, and thank God I'm an only child, or else I would have to share the small space I have already. I was homeschooled for most of my education and then switched to online school at my own insistence for high school. I'm an 18-year-old girl. I don't have a single friend in person because the longest I've ever stayed anywhere is a month. I don't have a job and no way to get one because of not being stationary unless I find one online, which also mean I have no way to move out and get away from them. I've had conversations with them about all of this countless times, and they are so delusional and genuinely believe that a nomadic existence is the best way to live, so why would I never need anything else? I hate them for treating me like some pet they can just drag along in their plans rather than their child. I hate traveling, I don't like heat, I hate dealing with bugs, and I'm so sick of hiking. I can't wait for the day that I finally figure out a way to get away from them with their morning's hikes and cameras in my face. I've traveled around the US, yeah, but God forbid I want to have a normal life, go to college, or maybe even make some friends. That's asking too much. Update. Hello, barely over a week ago I made a post talking about my very negative experience living in an RV with my parents for around 10 years now. Despite it being such a short time since I've posted it, a lot has changed for me since then. I don't know how many people here would be interested in an update on my situation, but I know quite a few people were very concerned and would probably appreciate an update, so here it is. Also, fair warning, this is a fairly lengthy post. I have a tendency to ramble, so there is sort of a TLDR at the end. I had a lot of people give me really helpful advice, resources, as well as even offers to try to help personally, some being questionable admittedly, but a majority being genuinely concerned, wanting to try to help, and I very much appreciate that. It was slightly overwhelming, to be honest, and I ended up not responding to a lot of people, so you'll all have to forgive me for that. But even if I didn't respond much, I have been doing research on a lot of the information people gave me. Something that stood out to me was people asking if I had any family I could stay with, to which I had to respond, not that I know of, because I don't have anyone on my dad's side of the family, and my mom strictly no contact with her family. I did not know if they were alive, if they cut her off, if she cut them off, or even any details about them, and my mom had never wanted to talk about it. What information I did have was my mom's maiden name, which is pretty uncommon, and where she was born, which in terms of trying to find family can actually get you surprisingly far, I've come to realize. I've always had a slight hatred for the internet because I never had any choice in my life being public knowledge, and I know that once something is out there, it's out there, but for the first time I'm actually really grateful for the internet. I was able to find some information on my mother's side of the family, and specifically was able to find my grandma's Facebook account, though it did take me some effort. After a lot of stressing on how to approach messaging her, if I even should, as well as potential outcomes, I messaged her explaining my mom's life, who I was, and my situation. I won't go into details onto why my grandma and my mom are no contact, because that is not my story to share, but my grandma was appalled that she has a granddaughter she didn't even know about, and even more so the way in which her daughter raised me. I found out I have an aunt and an uncle, both of which my grandma told them about me and my situation. I've been in pretty much constant contact with all of them since just learning about each other. All of them want to help me get out of this living situation with my parents, and luckily with me being 18 now, it's actually possible. Again, I don't feel entirely comfortable going into details, but I have arrangements to go stay with my aunt who lives in a big city on the West Coast that had a lot of potential opportunities for me to start college or whatever I see fit, which I do plan on figuring out college, happy to announce. My uncle has kids, but my aunt lives on her own and has a spare bedroom which she has no problem letting me stay in for as long as necessary. I have a train ticket scheduled and purchased by my aunt and enough money to get to the station. I'm talking with my family, still feels weird to type, currently, and trying to plan out the details, like how or if I'm going to tell my parents. My mom doesn't know any information on where any of her family lives, so even if I were to tell my parents who I'm going to live with, they wouldn't know where I was specifically. Someone pointed out that if I did leave without telling them, I should leave a note or some form of proof that I left willingly, so if I do opt Out of a conversation I'm planning on either leaving a note or filming a video explaining my plans and why I'm leaving, which would be kinda of ironic, wouldn't it? Regarding my mom filming, I've been very quiet around my parents and just refusing to talk when the camera is on, but neither one of them has mentioned it yet so far, luckily. Also, speaking of my mom's content, I would like to very much emphasize something quickly. Almost everyone was genuinely trying to help, but I had a few people replying trying to guess who I was. Luckily the few I saw were basically torn to shreds and ended up deleting their comments. I also had a few people who messaged me privately trying to make a guess at who I am, which at least that's not public eye guess. Although I can understand being curious, I posted anonymously with very little personal information for a reason. As I stated in my previous post, I have gotten enough attention and I'm very much sick of it. I would very much appreciate it if you guys can respect that. Even if you think you might know who I am, please don't make public guesses and understand that I don't want this to be even more public information tied to my name. Very long story short, I have set plans to leave as well as a safe place to go with my aunt once I do, and very much appreciate so people for being so willing to help. If you had told me not even 2 weeks ago that not only do I have a plan to move away from my parents but contact with family members I didn't even know existed, I don't think I would have believed it. I'm currently not planning on making another post updating this, but wanted to let anyone who was concerned about me to not worry. Genuinely thank you. Update 2. Hello, it's been a while and I wanted to check in on here to hopefully give a few people some peace of mind. In my last update I explained that I had gotten in contact with my mother's side of the family and had a place to go stay. I can proudly announce that I did it and am in a safe place now, totally away from my parents with absolutely zero contact. My aunt is an absolute angel, truly. She's so kind, and that's not even including my grandma and uncle. When I first got here, my aunt as well as my grandma took me out on a little shopping spree, bought me clothes, decor and furniture for my room, because I have one of those now, and honestly anything they thought I would need. My uncle has introduced me to my cousins. He has a younger son and a daughter who's very close in age to me, and I would say that we have become friends. I've been able to go out and do a lot of fun little things with her. My aunt is currently helping me research colleges near us, but has reassured me I can do everything at my own pace and there really is no rush, that her home will always have a spot for me. My aunt in general is such a cool person. She's someone I very quickly have started to look up to and have gotten close to. The more time we spend together, the more we learn that we actually have a lot in common. I'm just so grateful to all of them for being here and being so supportive. My aunt is also really helping me figure out who I am as an individual. For the first time I'm in charge of my identity, what I share, and who I share it with. I dyed and cut my hair, got a nickname and have been exclusively going by it. My cousin is currently on journey to help me learn about what makeup I like. She's also introducing me to her favorite music groups as a self-proclaimed, cringe but free K-pop fan. I have an entirely private Instagram account with all of 5 followers and I plan on keeping it that way. I just feel like a normal teenage girl for once and I've never felt happier. When I look in the mirror or just think about my life in general, I'm actually happy with it. I guess never realized that I wasn't comfortable in my identity as a person because honestly, I had bigger things to worry about. This is all more than I could have ever imagined, and honestly, I have a hard time even processing it sometimes. I am officially in therapy though, so maybe I can start working that as well as processing my past, and how it plays into my identity in the future. My new therapist is actually the part of the reason I'm making this update. She thinks that posting this could be a good way to get closure to a certain extent. As sort of a way of acknowledging what I went through but also moving on into my new life because I have my whole future ahead of me. One that I am very excited to experience. So keeping that in mind, this will be my final update on here. I want to be able to enjoy my life and future while keeping my privacy. A lot of people really wanted me to share my story more, expose my past, but at least for now I've decided against that. It's my story and I can choose to share it or not. For once I have control over who gets to know what information about me, and I'm not willing to give that up yet, but I suppose I don't know what the future holds. So I'm asking as nicely as possible that people please respect that. I absolutely appreciate the support and advice so many have given me, and just know I'm safe. I can honestly say that I'm happy. I'm planning out my future, what I want to do with my life and who I am beside just a persona on camera. So thank you so much for everything, and goodbye, smiley face. Stories number 52. Am I the asshole for missing my son's birth? I am 23, I am a Marine, and my girlfriend, 22, and I have been together for 5 years, and we were thrilled when we found out we were expecting our first child. Her due date was originally scheduled for December, and I had already arranged leave to be home for the birth. Unfortunately, our son was born prematurely at 34 weeks, in mid-November. When my girlfriend went into labor, I was in the middle of a week-long training exercise in a remote area with no access to my phone or email. By the time I found out, my son had already been born and was in the NICU. I was devastated that I missed it. I immediately requested emergency leave, but it took a couple of days to get approved and for me to travel back home. When I arrived, my girlfriend was upset. She told me that she felt abandoned during one of the scariest moments of her life and that I should have done more to prepare for the possibility of an early birth or to find a way to be there. I tried to explain that I didn't even know what was happening until it was too late and that I would have done anything to be there if I could. She's been struggling with postpartum depression since the birth, and I can see how much she's been hurting, but I don't know how to make it right. I feel horrible for not being there when she needed me most, but at the same time, I genuinely don't know what else I could have done given the situation. Am I the asshole for missing my son's birth? Stories number 53. Performer didn't realize I was the manager. Some years ago, my partner and I managed a bar and we had live acts every Friday night. We had inherited a few bookings from the previous managers, but we honored the bookings. One night, we had a comedian who before us had performed regularly at the bar. Anyway, at the time, I dressed like a student and had long, dyed hair. The regulars all knew I was the manager and had no problems with my appearance. The comedian starts his act and spots me collecting glasses and proceeds to complain about students, how lazy they are, look at this one, can't get a proper job, what's with her hair, etc. No laughter, so he carries on laying into me. I smile and continue working. After the set, I walk over to give him his cash and he's already got more dates to book with us. The joy as I said no thanks, I'm the manager and I will never book you again. Watching his face fall was beautiful. Stories number 54. Am I the asshole for pulling out of a wedding and ending a 20-year friendship via text? I, 25F, have been friends with Sophie, 25F, for as long as I can remember. She's been a constant in my life, from our toddler years to now. We were super close throughout elementary, middle, and high school, but we grew a bit distant during college since we attended different schools. Our relationship hasn't always been great, though. Over the years, resentment has built up because of certain events. For example, Sophie and I were eligible for a free trip abroad. We'd been planning to go together, and the best time to go was during college so we could join others from our area. I decided to wait for Sophie. Then, in October 2022, I got a text from her out of the blue saying she'd signed up for the trip, and that she was sorry she hadn't told me. What upset me most was that, 1, she didn't tell me until after registration had closed, and, 2, she had signed up 3 weeks earlier without saying a word. I understood she wanted to go on the trip alone, but not telling me for weeks felt like a betrayal. But that wasn't the only issue. In middle school, my core friend group was Sophie, Abby, Janie, and me. I introduced Sophie and Abby, and they became so close they started hanging out without me. I felt excluded and hurt. Eventually, I became closer to Janie, and our group dynamic shifted. We all hung out as a foursome, but it was clear that Sophie and Abby were closer, while Janie and I were tight. In high school, Sophie got a boyfriend and started ditching us to spend time with him. It got so bad we confronted her, and she outright told us, "He's more important to me than you guys." That ended her friendship with Janie, who didn't hold back during the confrontation. Meanwhile, Abby started hanging out with Janie and me more, but eventually, Abby and Janie became closer and started excluding me, just like Sophie and Abby had in middle school. Fast forward, Abby, Sophie, and I stayed in touch over the years, while Janie moved to Florida for college. I was the only one who kept in contact with her. In November 2023, Janie moved back home, and we started hanging out like old times, seeing each other 4 to 5 times a week. A few months later, Abby reached out, asking if she could join us. I was hesitant because I didn't want to feel excluded again, but I decided to give it a shot. Reconnecting went surprisingly well, and the 3 of us started hanging out twice a month. At Abby's birthday party, Sophie showed up. It was the first time she and Janie had seen each other in years. At first, the reunion seemed fine, but then Sophie pulled me aside to talk trash about Janie. It was clear she still hadn't moved past their confrontation from high school, which annoyed me. Now, fast forward to September 2024, Sophie got engaged and invited me to coffee, where she asked me to be a bridesmaid. I was excited and said yes. During the conversation, she mentioned booking Airbnbs for the bridal party, and I said, I can't wait to share an Airbnb with Abby. That's when Sophie dropped a bombshell. "Oh, about that, Abby hates you." I was shocked and asked her to explain. Sophie made me swear not to confront anyone, then told me Janie had supposedly told Abby that I hated her and didn't want to hang out with her. Months earlier, I'd vented to Janie that Abby didn't really fill my cup anymore and that hanging out with her felt different, but I never said I hated her. The next day, I had a double date planned with Janie and couldn't keep this to myself. I asked her about it, and she admitted that Abby had texted her after we all hung out, saying she wanted nothing to do with me. Janie responded by saying I felt the same. Even though we cleared the air, I still felt uneasy. When Sophie later asked if I'd confronted Janie, I told her the truth, which led to a huge fight between us. After days of arguing, I asked to meet in person to talk, but Sophie refused. At that point, I realized Sophie had been a terrible friend to me for years. I was only holding on to our friendship because of how long we'd known each other. I texted her, explaining that I couldn't be in her wedding and that our friendship wasn't healthy. I haven't heard from her since. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for pulling out of her wedding and ending our 20-year friendship? Stories number 55. I was wrong. As a kid, I tried anything to get out of school. I learned I wasn't allergic to poison ivy by trying to get out of going to school by rubbing it all over my legs, and having zero reaction whatsoever. I just checked my temp with a thermometer because I feel hot, and I asked my husband if he ever tried to blow hot air into his mouth when his temp was checked, in order to try to make it read a higher temp to get out of school. He said he didn't remember ever doing that. I realized that I've never tested to see if it actually did anything, so I tried it. I checked twice in a row the way you're supposed to, both times the thermometer read 96.4. Then, I tried it while blowing hot air into my mouth, and it read 95.8. I was lowering the temp the whole time. I always wondered why I didn't get sent home. I may have been close to or just at an actual fever sometimes, but freaking blew air into my mouth and cooled the thermometer down. So, it turns out I was wrong about a lot of things. I wasn't allergic to poison ivy. I was lowering the temp reading on the thermometers instead of raising it. I guess I was really meant to just go to school. Stories number 56. I directly caused a pregnant woman to lose her job. About 10 years ago, I was working for a skylight installation company. The company was on the smaller side, 2 guys were part owners, one would take a few installers with them on jobs and the other ran the sales side. Our office consisted of a woman in her 60s, a CPA/bookkeeper that wore many hats and a slightly heavy-set, relevant later, woman in her late 20s who had more of a secretarial role, answering phones, sending out invoices, assisting with billing, etc. I overheard a private phone conversation between the younger woman and her husband where she spoke about going to her 20-week appointment and being told risk of miscarriage was significantly reduced at that milestone. They were relieved. Without thinking, a few days later, I mentioned to my boss that my SIL had left her job and had started her own business and could possibly work on a per diem or part-time role until the younger employee came back. She had the experience needed and most importantly would not require long-term employment but 3 to 4 months of part-time work a few days per week would be an ideal fit for both parties. Only the younger employee, being heavier, was not showing at 20 weeks, and had not mentioned anything to her bosses yet about any leave. The very next day, they let her go, referencing they wanted to move to more advanced sales lead/invoicing software in the future and would be looking to hire someone with significant experience in those areas. They never mentioned her pregnancy and told her if she acquired the familiarity with these programs, she could apply for rehire in the future. I told her I believed this was all my fault, and if she hired an attorney for wrongful termination I would do anything requested of me. She was surprisingly naive that this was the cause. She believed their BS about the new programming as a valid reason and was content to leave it there. The horrific icing on the cake is she lost her baby 4 or 5 weeks later. I left that job shortly after. If it's any consolation, one of the company owners died 5-ish years ago in an at-fault vehicle crash and I learned this morning the other lost their battle with pancreatic cancer this past Sunday, hence this all coming back to me. Both men died before turning 50. Couldn't have happened to nicer guys. Their awful behavior doesn't excuse my own stupidity. Learn from my mistakes and just stay quiet about your coworkers. You may be well-meaning, but never assume your listeners are. Stories number 57. Resigned with nothing lined up and I don't want to work in engineering anymore. I recently resigned from my job as a civil engineer. I never really liked the position but it was tolerable until I was assigned a new boss. He made going into work even more miserable and I was starting to hate myself. I should add that this is my second job after graduating. My first job was even worse as it was in construction and I had to deal with extremely unpleasant people and would cry daily at work. I didn't quit that job until I had another one locked in, but in hindsight I should have left way sooner. Anyway, that's partially why I just quit this current job. I didn't want to wait until I get a new job while my mental health continues to decline. But the thing is that now I feel like engineering isn't for me. That includes the other disciplines that are somewhat related to construction, estimating, design. I don't like any of it and I want to do something totally unrelated. The thing is that I don't know what jobs I could do now with my current background without having to go back to school. I think some kind of business role at a company that is totally unrelated to anything engineering would be great. But they all seem to be looking for business degrees. Has anyone ever made a transition like this? Or if anyone has general advice, I'd be interested in hearing it. Stories number 58. Just like the title says, I'm a pussy. I'm a pussy when it comes to dating, traveling, job searching. Really, when it comes to bettering myself or putting myself out there, I feel like I chicken out. Is my life terrible? No, but I want more and I'm too pussy to go get it. That shit is so infuriating about myself. I want to move out of state, but I let my anxiety take over or find reasons not to. I've been contemplating it for a couple years, but I always find an excuse. Whether it's me saying let me finish this degree first, or let me find a work from home to make moving easier, or let me finish paying off my car first. I have no kids, I don't own a home yet, and I'm single. I want to date, but when it comes down to it I get anxiety, I downplay myself or lose the confidence I had in the beginning to keep engaging, when in reality I feel like I'm attractive and I'm funny AF. LOL, I'm just tired of being a pussy. Stories number 59. Entitled Karen tells my manager to try the beer that we are serving to customers. I'm a 24 male and my manager is 39 female. She is also pregnant, and the Karen tried telling my manager to try the beer. I step in and say she can't try the beer because she is pregnant, and if you don't like the beer then you can have something else to drink. We don't make the beer, so we have no control over how it tastes. I take a shot glass hand, I try the beer, and the Karen looks at me and said I wanted her to try the beer, not you, you're clearly not old enough to drink it. This happened in the UK, where the age to drink alcohol at is 18 years old. I said I'm 24 years old and I know an entitled Karen when I see one, and told her to leave. My manager said thank you to me for standing up for her and putting that Karen in her place, and I posted on the pub's Facebook page saying that the Karen and her family are banned from the pub. So am I the jerk for the way I handled this? Stories number 60. Cheese glitch. This is such a mundane glitch, but I can't stop thinking about it. Yesterday morning, my 3-year-old daughter wanted cheese. I usually cut her a piece from a block of cheddar. I remembered opening a new package of cheddar last week and giving her some, so I went to grab it from the fridge. I always keep it in the same basket of cheeses in the fridge, so I knew exactly where it was. When I pulled it out, though, the package was sealed, completely unopened, like it was brand new. I thought I must be mistaken, so I spent some time checking the package to see if it was actually open anywhere, but it wasn't. It was definitely sealed. Confused, I went back to the fridge to look for the open package, but there wasn't another one. Finally, I just decided to open the sealed package. I tore off the plastic strip that seals the bag, opened it, and the cheese inside was already cut and used, just like I remembered from last week. The edge of the block was cut, and there was even a loose chunk of cheese where my daughter hadn't finished the piece I cut for her before. But this was all inside a sealed bag. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I wish I'd taken a video when I opened it yesterday, but I had a very hangry toddler helping me, so I just quickly cut her some cheese while standing there completely baffled. Stories number 61. Car dealership is having me return a car, and because I traded in my car, it's causing me to lose money. Posting for a friend. My friend recently saw a flyer from a dealership that said you can lease a new car for an extremely affordable monthly payment. She went to inquire and they let her leave the lot with the car. 2 weeks later she receives a letter at the bank denied her loan application and that she needs to return the car. When she went to talk to the sales rep, the rep said the application got denied because she doesn't work full-time. She is okay with returning the car, but she had also traded in a car for $800. The car she traded in was worth a lot more than $800, bad decision on her part. The dealership no longer has the car she traded in and they will return her $800. However, she now needs to purchase a car which will cost her more than $800. Are there any grounds to sue considering she is losing at least a few $1,000s? Would it be possible that the sales rep knew she would have not been approved while working a part-time job? Edit. Location is in Los Angeles, California. Stories number 62. Am I the asshole for telling a 4-year-old child that I'm not her boyfriend? I'm a gay man who is best friends with a few parents. Being 32, obviously I'd have friends with children. I made friends with this woman, we'll call her Helga, 26F, who had a 4-year-old child who just started learning about what boundaries are and, at the same time, what a boyfriend is. I went to hang out at her place because she was inviting a lot of people over for a game night. Her 4-year-old daughter wanted to stay up and hang out with the adults. She's an only child, so obviously she's going to be excited when new people come around. She, unfortunately, took a strange liking to me. Anytime I'd start talking to someone, she'd interrupt me with, "OP, can I ask you something?" Or, "OP, can you help me with something? Please." I'd put on my best uncle voice and say, "Yes, honey." She would ask me to either get her something to drink or she would ask me questions that 4-year-old children would ask. She would also try to sit next to me or in front of me so I would pay attention to her. She would hand me a stuffed animal and tell me to hold it. She would also grab my hand and show me her favorite toys and ask me to play. Even though I'd tell her that I'm here to hang out with her mom, but a friend of Helga's made a joke to her daughter, "Is OP your boyfriend, honey?" The daughter grabs my arm and says, "Yes. He's my boyfriend." I stood there in silence staring at Helga's friend. Helga looked at her and said, "Great. Now she thinks OP is going to be her boyfriend in real life." Helga looks at me and mouths, "I'm sorry." I don't play along, however. I pull my arm out from the daughter's grip and say, "I'm sorry, honey, but I can't be your boyfriend because my boyfriend is at home. He doesn't share." Helga's daughter gets sad, not only because I move my arm, but because I told her I am not her boyfriend. Her face sunk down and she put her head down. She ran to her room and started screaming bloody murder and wailed so loud, "You thought I stole her toy." The room was awkwardly silent, but all you could hear was the poor girl crying so loud. Helga ran to console her child, but the friend scolded me because I should have played along, but I think it's unfair to lie to a child. Am I the asshole for breaking a 4-year-old's heart? Stories number 63. My fiancé 40M sent me 32F a sleepy text to me that seems suspicious. Some background and relevant information. We have been together for 7 years and got engaged last year. We don't live together but with our own families while we try to save up to buy a house. My fiancé has terrible sleep and has to get up early for work, like 3 a.m. early. He is also dyslexic. We have always texted throughout the day to say I love you, but after he was sent home a few times for heat exhaustion, we live somewhere with summer above 100. It changed into him letting me know they are doing okay and that they love me. Now on to the issue which happened this afternoon. We were texting like normal and then he sent me a message that said, "Have you ever been cream pied?" He knows the answer to that. He immediately deleted the message and sent, "I'm sleepy." I texted back asking what the message was for and restated what was said. He said it was a sleepy text sent to you and then I'm kind of not paying attention of what I'm texting you. I said unfortunately, that is really hard to believe. We can talk about it later. I love you. He replied I love you too and it is the truth. He has never given me any reason to doubt he is faithful to me, but this is suspicious, right? I'm not sure what to do. I do plan to have a discussion before doing anything, but he has nearly a whole week to get rid of any evidence. What would you do in my position? ETA, he does have a speech impediment and uses text-to-speech as well. I'm not saying he isn't cheating, but it's something I didn't think to add. Stories number 64. Am I the asshole for ruining my brother's childhood memory by admitting I photoshopped it 14 years ago? Not the a-hole. When my younger brother, 20 now, was 6, he went through a huge Harry Potter phase. He loved the wizarding world and believed he might meet Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe, or the other characters on a family trip to Scotland since Hogwarts was there. No one promised him this, but he convinced himself it could happen. Sadly, the trip was cancelled after our grandpa passed away, and my brother was devastated for both reasons. To cheer him up, I decided to craft a souvenir. I was 16 and had just discovered Photoshop, so I edited a picture of my brother with Daniel Radcliffe to make it look like they'd met. I printed it, framed it, and gave it to him without telling him it was fake. He loved it and fully believed he'd met Daniel. Soon, he had an entire story about the meeting, what they talked about, how Daniel hugged him, etc. It was so sweet, and none of us, my family and I, had the heart to tell him the truth. Fast forward 14 years, and my brother still didn't know that the old, low-quality picture of him meeting Daniel Radcliffe is fake. I never told him because his memory of the fake meeting felt so real to him that it became one of his proudest stories. Over time the memory became less important and the framed picture had been packed away in some box, and my brother has long outgrown his Harry Potter obsession. Yesterday, however, we were at our parents' home and we were bringing up old memories, you know how it goes. The story of meeting Daniel Radcliffe came up, and thinking it was harmless, I told him the truth. I thought he'd laugh, but instead he got visibly upset. He didn't want to believe me at first, thinking I was messing with him. I told him the real story of how and why I did it. He told me that it feels like I robbed him of a real childhood memory that he really cherished, and he feels embarrassed thinking about all the times he's told people about meeting Daniel Radcliffe in person, even recently. We ended our conversation on a semi-good note, though. I apologized for not telling him sooner, because I do feel bad that it meant so much to him even now, but I don't regret it. Back then, it made him so happy during a rough time, and I don't regret giving him that joy. I just didn't realize how much it still meant to him. So I'm just wondering, am, or was, I the a-hole? Stories number 65. My 38F husband, 41M, bought me a boudoir photo shoot. I don't want to do it. My husband just bought us an anniversary gift of a boudoir photo shoot to celebrate 20 years of being together. It's a sweet gesture but not something I'm totally comfortable with, as I'm nervous that the photographer could get hacked/can't be trusted. I tried having this conversation with my husband and he got really upset as it's non-refundable. I would do it if it was just the two of us, but I just don't feel comfortable at the moment with a photographer I don't know even though he's talked to him a couple times apparently. Are my fears of security over the top? If you've done this before, how did you feel? TLDR, my husband bought me a boudoir photo shoot as an anniversary and I'm torn. Also, if you've done this before, I'm open to DM if you're not comfortable commenting. Update, 2 days later. So I talked with the photographer over the phone first. He was a professional and went over every single fear I had and had what I thought was a professional and authentic answer for all of them. He made sure I understood I was in control and this was my time, not anyone else's. He was also frustrated that my husband had not told me ahead of time. Anyway, we went ahead with the shoot and I had a blast honestly. The photographer was great, had great suggestions, and I actually think it was worthwhile and I'm glad I did it. I'm still frustrated at my husband, but he just didn't really think it through. He wanted it to be a surprise but didn't really put himself into my shoes. Should get the photos this week. I'm actually kinda excited. Stories number 66. My 26F boyfriend, 26M, of 3 years abruptly dumped me via text because of someone else's Facebook. A few minutes ago my boyfriend of 3 years dumped me via that text. It really shocked me and his reasoning was that he found a Facebook profile that was apparently mine, it's not, and that I was a lying bitch who plays games and that we were done. This completely came out of left field. Last we spoke, which was not even 2 hours ago, everything seemed fine. I'm a few hours away ATM because I was visiting my family for Father's Day. Also I've been helping my dad because a car accident that has left him disabled. It's been really hard for him, so I decided to spend a weekend with him. My boyfriend had to stay behind because of work. My phone was on vibrate and I woke up to it vibrating somewhere in my room. He called twice in a row, which is a little unusual, so I tried to call him. A part of me was worried something bad happened because he never just calls seconds apart. He forwarded my call to VM after one ring and then I got a string of enraged texts. First was a picture of a profile of some woman who shares my name and the rest were filled with anger. How I played him for a fool and that he was done playing games. Firstly, the woman in the pic looks nothing like me, she has black hair and blue eyes. I have auburn hair and green eyes. I also have a beauty mark above my lip on the left-hand side and this woman has nothing. My boyfriend blocked my number, Facebook, and all that lovely stuff and I am at a loss. This is all very sudden and all I feel is anger and pain. I don't want my dad to hear me crying. He has enough on his plate to deal with. A little background, my boyfriend cheated on me a few months into the relationship and I didn't learn about it until a year later. I ended up forgiving him and things seemed fine. He was remorseful and did his damnedest to regain my trust. I can't help but wonder if he did this because he did something wrong and wants an excuse for it, or he wanted to dump me in order for him to cheat without cheating. Tomorrow is his birthday too. I wonder if he wants to be free for that day. It just makes me cry. I won't be taking him back. No way in hell. He's living in my house, nothing is in his name, he can fuck off. Right now I'm kind of shattered at the moment because I invested so much time and emotion in this person. I forgave him when he cheated on me and now he's pulling random Facebook profiles out of his ass to use to break up with me and say I'm the shady one. What can I do to help myself? I am really at a loss right now. Thank you. TLDR, boyfriend of 3 years dumps me via that text accusing me of having another Facebook despite the fact the woman in the profile looks nothing like me and the only thing we have in common is our name. How do I move on and heal from such a callous action? Update. Thank you guys for your encouraging words and wisdom, it's helped out a lot. Myself and 6 other people went to my house this morning, including my brothers and lawyer uncle. My ex was sitting in his computer room playing LOL, seemingly oblivious that I came home and anyone entered the room. I promptly tapped him on the shoulder and asked him to turn off the game and pack his stuff. He shrugged my hand off and continued to talk to his teammates through what I assume was Skype or TeamSpeak. My patience for his BS is in the negative, so I bent down and unplugged the surge protector from the wall. My ex flung the headset that I bought him off of his head and it bounced off his monitor. He stood up screaming how that was a ranked game and that I was fucking up his stats or whatever he was foaming about. My brother stepped between us and told him that he had 10 minutes to pack his things and only his things before we called the cops to have him removed. We all stepped out of the room and watched him unplug his computer and neatly stack his stuff. He tried to take my Ethernet cable and I was like, nah. A friend brought in a box and we watched him go through the house taking the seldom things he owned, all the while texting away on his phone. It turns out he was saying some ugly things on his FB, but whatever. That is childish stuff and water off a duck's ass to me. He tossed the box of clothes, sneakers, and DVDs/console games into the back seat of his shitty 1995 Honda and then made it a process to take his computer out. He was more concerned his LOL game and his computer than me. He didn't make eye contact or speak to me. There was just an air of hostility that I can't even explain. I can't comprehend how someone could just suddenly hold such animosity towards someone they apparently loved. I sat on the stairs watching him go back and forth, my friend Jess recording the whole process on her cell phone just in case. She's pretty clever lol. It was really hard, I felt anger brewing under the indifferent exterior I was showing. A part of me wanted to throw an egg at the back of his smug head, but I know that it isn't worth it. He isn't worth any energy, negative or positive. The whole process took about 15 minutes and we all watched on my lawn as he drove away. My uncle gave a big hug and left, and the rest of us ate pizza and watched some TV. As uneventful as it was, the whole experience was draining. It's easy when there are people around to talk to and occupy my mind, but when I'm alone what he did keeps popping into my head and I start to get anxious. I tossed all of my bedding and sprayed my couches and chairs with deodorizer in the lame attempt of exorcising whatever foul things he may have done. I know, irrational lol. Today I'm going to be heading to Bed Bath & Beyond to buy some new bedding and treat myself. I realized that being with him I didn't really love myself, I was too preoccupied with appeasing him. Any action I took in spoiling myself, whether it be new clothes, a game, or makeup, was met with suspicion. It was all in his whacked out head. Being alone after being in a relationship for such a long period of time is daunting. I know I'll be fine, if not awesome, after getting that cancer out of my life. I had to set up a rule with my friends and family to not talk about him to me because a friend texted how he was flooding his Facebook with pictures of himself, smiling and being happy. I don't want to hear it. If he's happy that he is a resident of his mom's basement and cheats on good women with gutter scum, then so be it. In the end, whether it be 6 months from now, a year, 5 years, whatever, something in his brain will click and he will realize the massive fuck up he did the last few days. As crappy as it sounds, I hope it makes him miserable. I will be changing my locks despite taking his copy of his keys, and I think I will add extra security just in case. When he was a teen he vandalized houses of people he didn't like, and judging from his behavior I wouldn't put it past him to do it again. Also, I am going to the doctor tomorrow to get tests done. I don't feel anything wrong, but I won't be taking chances. This whole thing has been a life experience. He hasn't ruined any future relationships for me. He did me a favor to up my standards and reinforce my self-worth. I know what to look out for now, and I know what kind of person I deserve. Thank you again, you guys. You brought a lot of great points and it helped tremendously. TLDR, went home with an entourage consisting of big burly brothers and a lawyer. X had a temper tantrum that I interrupted his ranked LOL game to kick him out. Priorities. Other than that, it was peaceful. Going to splurge on nice things today, and tomorrow I will be getting STI tests done. Thank you so much for words of encouragement and compassion. Our relationships. Manager threw a hissy fit because I wouldn't answer questions about my private life. I'm training as a car salesman, and the lady in charge of finance, not my manager, started asking me about my wife in a very rapid-fire manner like a cop would. She asked the following: where does she work? Which store? I'm gonna go there full time. What's her name? Show me photos. At this point I told her to calm down and questioned her third degree. She threw a fit and acted like I had been rude, and said later on, you need to watch what you say to both customers and me, I'm your manager. I told her I'd be more careful, and she said yeah, you be careful, in a threatening tone. I'm pretty pissed because I don't understand where she gets off feeling so entitled to my personal information, especially when inquired in such a rude manner. I wasn't even rude to her, though my anger made me want to call her a nosy C-word. Don't like the way I park? Fine, I'll follow the rules exactly. A couple of months ago, I had a run-in with the self-appointed HOA enforcer of my neighborhood. Let's call her Linda. For context, I don't live in an HOA community, but Linda likes to pretend we do. She's the kind of person who leaves passive-aggressive notes on cars, knocks on doors to complain about lawn heights, and calls the city for violations that don't actually exist. The issue started because I parked my car on the street in front of my house. It's perfectly legal, and I've been doing it for years without any complaints. But apparently, Linda decided that my car was an eyesore. One day, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper that said, it annoyed me, but I shrugged it off and kept parking where I always do. That wasn't good enough for Linda. The next time, she confronted me in person. Linda, I've told you before, parking on the street is inconsiderate. You have a driveway, use it. Me, it's legal to park here, and I'm not blocking anything. Linda, it doesn't matter. It's ugly and makes the neighborhood look bad. Park in your driveway, or I'll report you. That's when I decided, fine. If she wants me to park in my driveway, I'll park in my driveway, but I'll follow every single rule to the letter. You see, my driveway is small. If I park my car in it, it blocks the sidewalk. Technically, it's against city ordinances to obstruct the sidewalk. So the next day, I pulled my car right into my driveway, perfectly centered, and guess what? It completely blocked the sidewalk. It didn't take long for Linda to notice. She marched up to my door, red-faced and furious. "Linda, you can't block the sidewalk. That's illegal." Me, "Oh, I thought you wanted me to park in my driveway." Linda, "Not like that. Park properly." Me, "There's no other way to park in my driveway without blocking the sidewalk. Guess I'll have to park back on the street then." Her face was priceless. She sputtered for a moment before stomping off. Thinking that was the end of it, I parked back on the street. But no, Linda wasn't done yet. She actually called the city on me. A week later, a city inspector came by. He checked out the situation, saw that my car was legally parked on the street, and told me I was doing nothing wrong. However, he did mention that Linda had made several complaints about code violations in the neighborhood, and they were getting tired of her nonsense. After that, I didn't hear from Linda for a while, until last week, when she started parking her car on the street in front of my house. So, I did what any good neighbor would do, I called the city and reported it. Turns out her car was slightly too close to a fire hydrant. She got a ticket. Malicious compliance never felt so sweet. I, F30, think wedding planning is killing the love I have for my M29, am I the drama? I was supposed to get married next September, but today, I texted my saying I don't want to marry him anymore. I also emailed my wedding planner to tell her the same. Now, I'm questioning whether I even want to stay in this relationship. We've been together for almost 6 years. He's a good person, and I know he loves me in his way. We laugh, share interests, and things are good 80% of the time. But the wedding planning has exposed cracks I can't ignore. 3 years ago, I brought up marriage because it was important to me. His response: "Why? It's not necessary. You have me, I have you. That's enough." It crushed me. He didn't see marriage the way I did, as a celebration of our love with the people who matter to us. We revisited the topic this year, especially since we now have a child. I argued for marriage sentimentally and practically. He didn't budge until we met a notary who explained the financial protections marriage offers. The moment she mentioned we could face a $100K inheritance fee if one of us died, he immediately agreed to get married. That should have made me happy, but it didn't. He didn't want to marry me out of love, he wanted to save money. Planning the wedding has been a nightmare. His contributions? 0. No calls, no emails, no input. I'm chasing his family for guest lists because he doesn't have time. Our venue is being difficult, and I'm the only one dealing with it. Watching him, you'd think he's a guest, not the groom. When I confronted him, his response was, "I'm contributing by paying." It's not just the wedding, though. For 6 years, I've planned every birthday, every trip, every date night. He's never once done anything for my birthday, not even a dinner, while I've organized everything from theater nights to homemade dinners for him. I was planning a spa trip for his 30th, but I gave up because he's never put in that kind of effort for me. Then there's his indecisiveness. I'm always the one suggesting life plans, marriage, travel, even moving to his hometown by the sea, which was his idea to begin with. When I brought it up again last night, thinking it could be a future goal, his response was the same as always: "I don't know, maybe." It's neither a yes nor a no. It hit me, I'm always the one pushing, planning, and fighting for us. Like this wedding. I texted him today, "I hope one day you find someone with whom life plans like marriage come naturally. I'm just not that person for you." Because I'm not, am I? The wedding, once something I was so excited about, now feels like a symbol of everything wrong between us. I don't want to marry someone who won't fight for us the way I do, but I also feel like it's my fault. I should have accepted his first no instead of trying to change his mind. I should have walked away instead of convincing myself I'd get over it. Because I didn't. I have what I wanted but not the way I wanted, so maybe it's a whim. So, Reddit, am I the drama? First, thank you to everyone who commented. Some comments were incredibly helpful, while others were harsh, but those were the ones that helped me the most. 1. Why did I stay? A lot of people asked why I stayed in this relationship if he's such a bad partner. I had said that 80% of the relationship is good. Someone responded that if 80% of a sandwich was fine but 20% was literal shit, no one would eat it, and that hit hard. To be fair, I painted him in a very bad light and it's my fault if people saw him that way. Asking for advice on Reddit is tricky because you only share your side of the story. It's like ranting to friends after a fight with your partner, they'll validate you in the moment, and you'll feel good but later, when you calm down, you see the complexity of life and human relationships. First, he's not the typical Reddit deadbeat. I handle most of the cooking, but he does the majority of the cleaning. So I'm not his bang maid. He manages our finances, takes excellent care of our son, and fully handled pickups and dinners when I started a demanding new job. Unlike many women with kids, I never worry when I leave him alone with our son because I know he's safe and cared for. He's not abusive in any way, and we share many interests: tennis, crime shows, theater, movies, and genuinely enjoy each other's company. When I was escaping an abusive family, he was my safe place. He accepted me, even when I confided about my past trauma. He made me feel like a woman who had a right to belong in this world. I don't really know how to properly explain it. That's not something I'll ever forget. I know I can cry on his shoulder and he cried on mine many times, but our problems are cyclical. We argue, then things go back to normal. The 80% that's good is what kept me going for so long, but this year I snapped. The turning point was him doing nothing for my 30th birthday. 2. If he's fine, why are you upset? I have a clear vision of the life I want. I push us to grow and create meaningful moments. He, however, is passive. For example, I've told him how much little gestures mean to me, but I rarely see that effort from him. It's always me planning family lunches or sending postcards to his grandparents. I'm doing that because I know he likes it and I love seeing him happy. I love seeing his smile and that little joy in his eyes when I surprise him. To give you an analogy, I know he loves chocolate beet cake, and even though I hate them, I'm gonna bake them for him. He, on the other hand, knows that I love carrot cake, but since he doesn't care about them he won't make them for me. And his apathy makes me question the whole foundation of our relationship. It makes me question him: does he love me? It makes me question myself: do I exaggerate? Am I enough for him? Overall, I'm tired of feeling like the only one putting in that emotional effort. It's worse because I know he can do it. Early in our relationship, he was so proactive, planning dates, introducing me to his family, and talking about building a life together. He's the one who wanted me to move in with him, when I wanted to keep my apartment. He's the one who suggested we bought an app together. That's why I was shocked when he told me he didn't want to get married. Then he became even more disengaged, and it feels like he stopped trying. I can't explain why, and every time I tried to ask him it ended with an usual I'm like this, you need to accept me the way I am. The truth is, I never accepted it. And now, I'm not excited about doing anything with him or for him. I'm not any longer excited to marry him. It has lost all its sparkle. 3. Why is marriage so important to you? I never dreamed of a big wedding or being the center of attention. Our celebration is simple: 40 guests and a €300 dress. As for why? Well, I can't give you a rational answer, except that I love him and it was the natural course of our life. For me, it's about taking our union to the next level and sharing that joy with friends and family. The update: last night, we tried to talk, but it didn't go well. He said I make him look like a monster when I describe him. That his love language is to be there, do the domestic chores and provide for our family. He admitted he's trying, but my bitterness over past issues blinds me to his progress. He told me he loves me and does want to get married, not just for financial reasons, but because he truly wants to. I responded that if he wanted to get married, he should have acted accordingly, and given his lack of effort over the years, it felt like too little too late. Before walking away, he said, I know you're not excited about me anymore, which hurt both of us. In bed, I told him I feel like we're on the same train heading to different stations. It looks like we don't have the same expectations. However, we could try talking it out with a therapist. This morning, he surprised me by calling a therapist. We have a session booked for Saturday. Conclusion: it was never about wedding planning, but our expectations and how we value and care for one another. I've calmed down a bit since yesterday. I'm surprised and pleased he booked therapy, but I'm realistic. Progress won't happen overnight. Maybe we'll come to realize our relationship has run its course, or maybe counseling will help us find our way back. All I know is, we're trying. And yes, I still love him, even though I'm angry. Love is embarrassing.